Welcome to Something to Wrestle With.
Something to Wrestle With.
Bruce Prichard.
Bruce Prichard.
Well, you know.
That's not a rib. She booted.
Is that a rib?
No, yeah, but there's no box of gimmicks.
Rumor and innuendo.
I don't deal in rumor and innuendo. And was he there? I was there.
Say something about
I don't give a shit. I ain't scared of shit.
I ain't scared of shit.
Fuck him.
You, Bruce.
I love you take the cheese. Double cheeseburger. You take the bread. Double cheese. Well, you know. And then double mayo. You know, it's called chicken salad. Double onion, motherfucker.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle With Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm absolutely, I couldn't be any better right now. Just a beautiful day and feeling great.
Man, I'm excited to cover today's episode. I guess we should mention we got tremendous feedback last week from the episode. I think folks are digging that you're actually a little more relaxed and having fun, enjoying yourself. We got a little hot streak of good shows in a row. I got great feedback last week, and I can't believe it, but people actually like your stupid joke.
It's a true story. Hashtag Pancho Villa.
Yeah. We do have a new Pancho Villa shirt going up at brucepritchard.com. If you haven't already, go check it out. I can't believe that's actually a thing we're doing, but apparently we are. And we're doing something else I'm pretty excited about. We're finally doing it Yokozuna style. It's happening today. Man, this has been on the poll since, I don't know what, the first 2 or 3 months we had a show, and it never won the poll. And then finally I just said, fuck it. We're putting Yokozuna on the poll. I'm excited that we're finally covering Yoko. Are you shocked that we're finally making this one happen? This felt like the show that would never happen.
I'm digging a little Anawa'i action, by God. We'll hashtag, maybe we'll do this. Maybe we'll take Kabuki-ish and make it Yokozuna-ish. And hashtag Pancho Villa. Hashtag Pancho Villa's got a trend.
Help me understand here.
Okay.
Did you just pronounce his last name? Can you do that again for me?
Anawa'i.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Rodney. There's no way I'm getting that.
Yeah, you can do it. Do it. It's Rodney
Anoa.
Anawa'i.
Anawa'i.
Right. Anna. Wa. E.
Anawa'i.
Anawa'i. There, you got it.
So help me understand. When you greet this giant tribe of Samoans at TV every week, do you say, "What up, Anawa'i"?
Hell no.
Yeah, I didn't think
so. What up, dog? That covers all of them.
Oh my God. Are you really in 2019 hitting them with the dog?
DAWG.
My God. Well, Rodney.
DAWG. DAWG. That spells dog.
Rodney Anawa'i.
God, yes, twice in a row.
Was born October 2nd, 1966. He grew up in San Francisco. And of course, you probably figured out by now, he's a part of the Samoan dynasty. Such a rich and storied legacy in the wrestling business. Basically everyone who's Samoan, The Rock, Rikishi, Tonga Kid, Umaga, Manu, Jimmy and Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, pretty much every Samoan ever except Samoa Joe. Fair to say?
Fair to say. And you know what? There's a story that a lot of people don't know about how Afa and Sika started in the business. They had grown up in the Bay Area in San Francisco, I believe. And in San Francisco at the time, the biggest star for Roy Shire's promotion there was Peter Maivia. And Peter Maivia, being a Samoan high chief legit, was just, he walked on water. And the Samoans, they followed Peter wherever he went, whatever he did, man. He was their high chief. So a very large Samoan community in California. And so Pat Patterson would always tell the story about how he loved to work with Peter because of the heat, but then he hated working with Peter because you had to fight your way through all the Samoans at the end of the night. If you got any heat on Peter, man, you had to fight all of them. And he would tell stories about these two big bastards that would come down from the balcony, and that all the cops would be, oh shit, here they come again. That was Afa and Sika. And so later when they broke into the business and Pat goes, I remember you two, motherfucker. You came down. I had to fight you in the Cow Palace. And two nicer, kinder, gentler people you'll never meet than Afa and Sika. Now, on the flip side, they could be mean as a snake and just rip your head off. But absolutely two of my favorite people in the business that I've ever been able to be around. They're just so gentle and so cool.
Well, let's talk about the beginning of Rodney. You know, he's born into the business, as you said, Afa, Sika. I mean, it's the heritage. So it feels like he would have been around before he was quote unquote one of the boys. When did you first meet him?
The first time that I ever remember spending any time or seeing Rodney that I remembered was in Continental at the Alabama territory in Dothan, Alabama. I'd gone down to see my brother Tom, who was working the Continental Wrestling Federation down there. So I'd come in for a week, and there's Rodney, and I believe, God, what the hell he was Coquina at that time. And he was probably about 300, maybe 325 pounds, moved like a 150 pounder, just ungodly athleticism. But I knew Sammy because my brother Tom and Sammy were in a horrible automobile accident. And I knew Afa and Sika. And then, you met the kids along the way because the family was always around at different events. But they were small, and you didn't, or younger, I guess, was never small, but younger. So you met them along the way, but I didn't notice Coquina, Rodney, until I saw him in Continental. And I remember coming back from that trip going, holy shit, we've got to do something with this guy because he's got the size, but his athleticism was unbelievable.
That's so fascinating to me that everybody always puts over his athleticism, but when he starts, he's like 17 years old. And of course he starts training with Afa and Sika, because why wouldn't you? But he starts under the name Coquina and later the Great Coquina. And in the summer of 85, when he's really breaking in, he's already like 400 pounds. So to hear everybody sort of put over his athleticism is really remarkable. I mean, that makes him a super heavyweight, and to be that athletic in rare air, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't think that he was over 400. They might have billed him at over 400, but I bet you he was probably only about 325 at the time. He got there. Don't get me wrong. He got there, but early on in Alabama, I don't think he was tipping 400 just yet.
He's working all the territories, some of the smaller shots in Alabama, WOW, which is an outlaw Alabama promotion, and Continental Wrestling. And he even has a brief feud with Lord Humongous, which some of our listeners may remember was Sid Vicious under a mask. And he even worked for USWA for a very short period early in his career. And thank you. Between some of these tours, he has some shots in the late 80s and 90, 91 with the AWA. And when he's in the AWA, he's managed by Sheik Adnan, who we know later is going to be General Adnan in the WWF. Tell me about what you remember of Rodney in the AWA and maybe what working with Vern was like.
Well, I just saw him during that time, and I remember watching him. I think he was part of Adnan's group, and he was being used as kind of a monster heel. But he had the hair down and different things. But, you just kind of saw him around, and it was one of those situations where when you look at him, you always saw something else other than what you physically saw in front of you, if that makes any sense. You always would look at him and go, God, what he could be if you just got him out of the Samoan garb, which was the knee length trunks and tights that Afa and Sika always wore. I mean, that's what they wore. That's what they were identified with. And I think a lot of the Samoans after them all did the same kind of look for a long time. And you just looked at Rodney and you saw something special about him. There was a twinkle in his eye. He had a uniqueness and a very special air about him.
Let's talk about Japan. I didn't realize this, but he made 13 trips from Japan from 88 to 92. He debuts in the August 88 tour, and he's often used as part of a monster tag team with Big Van Vader, which is quite the tag team. In January of 90, he and Vader are going to lose the IWGP tag team titles to Saito and Hashimoto. And during the summer,
bless you.
Thank you. They're going to bring in his cousin, Samula, the Wild Samoan, and then they're going to form a regular tag team. And in 1992, I guess he's billed at 440 here. He's going to be introduced to Konishiki, murdered that
Bless
name, a 580 pound Samoan sumo wrestler who at the time is one of the biggest celebrities in Japan, which he holds a great position, which I believe is Ozeki. I'm butchering all this in sumo, which is a position right under Yokozuna. It's sort of fascinating that in 92 is when he first is introduced to a sumo wrestler. Did you ever hear of this Konishiki, or were you guys keeping up with any sumo at all in the WWF?
Fuck no.
Well, it's funny that you say that, but like on Reddit and a few other places, I see people talking about sumo, which makes me think, for years Meltzer has covered MMA, and I guess he thinks there's some crossover there, but I've seen some fans, like one of my better wrestling friends, Clint from Hershey, as you know, he watches sumo every month, and I just never really saw the crossover, but I didn't know if there was somebody in the office who was paying attention to stuff like that, because guys like John Tenta did have a sumo background.
Well, Conrad, back in the day, the WWF actually brought in Kenta, who was a huge sumo star. John Tenta and this guy had a big major shoot one time in Japan.
That's Clint from Hershey.
That's my Clint from Hershey, because I know that he's listening.
Yeah.
And he'll go, "Shut up, Bruce. I don't talk like that anymore."
It's true.
But we really didn't. We really look at everybody, but I think that the sumo style and the look, it wasn't conducive to professional wrestling in so many ways. They were few and far between who could adapt and make that crossover. But it was, we might as well just go ahead and jump into it, because when we brought Rodney in for a tryout, he came in and I was a big proponent of bringing him in, take a look at him. And I believe Alpha was pushing pretty hard. You need to take a look at Rodney. You need to take a look at Rodney. He came in and Vince was like, "What the fuck can I do with this big bastard? He's got something." And it was, Bob Remus, Sergeant Slaughter, who came up with the idea. He goes, "Why don't you, make him a sumo, put him in sumo garb, put his hair up and make him a sumo." So that credit goes to Sergeant Slaughter, who came up with that idea just after the first tryout match. And we were sitting there trying to think of something to do with him. So next thing you know, sumo drawings were made.
Man, that's amazing to me that's how it comes together. It's weird that I think we as fans assume that everything from the WWF was coming down through creative services, but sometimes it's just one of the boys. Recently on the debut episode of Arn, which is also available on Westwood One, it was pointed out that it was Junkyard Dog who pointed out that Marty Lundy looked a lot like Ole Anderson. And what do you know? He became an Anderson. So who would have thought it would have been Sergeant Slaughter who would have said, "Oh, make this guy a sumo." He does show up in the WWF around this same time, August of 92. He's going to come in with his cousins, Fatu and Samu, and they're originally going to come in as the Samoans, but soon thereafter be renamed the Head Shrinkers. And on August 17th, 1992, on an episode of Primetime Wrestling, the Samoans make their debut, and Gorilla Monsoon would make mention of another larger Samoan they would soon see in the WWF. And Rodney debuted initially as Coquina in an untelevised match on September 1st, 1992. This is a Superstars taping in Hershey, PA. He's going to get a win over Ron Neal. And there is a video floating around the internet of him wrestling in his early WWF days, and his hair's down. So
that was a tryout.
Totally different than the Yokozuna we know. And we know now that it was Sergeant Slaughter who saw something in there. And of course, once he's given the gimmick of Yokozuna, he's billed as being from Japan and packaged with Mr. Fuji. So tell me how this idea sort of progresses. Sergeant Slaughter makes a suggestion. It goes to creative services. They start drawing up some gear about what it might look like. How do we land on the name Yokozuna? How do we get with Mr. Fuji? Was there any hesitation as billing him from Japan?
Well, when you look at him and you start to picture what is that look going to be, and you look at a sumo and they have their ass hanging out. I think if Vince could have had his way and Rodney not be as self-conscious as he was, Yoko would have had his ass hanging out and been in traditional sumo gear the whole time. Rodney didn't want to do that. So there were drawings made with him to wear the tights and then have the sumo gear come up over it, where Rodney was more comfortable. We wanted him to be comfortable. Came up with white and red, different look gear. Some was white and red, some was black and red. And black and red is what we eventually settled on and stayed with. But a few different looks for Rodney initially in the beginning. But he wanted to present him as traditional sumo as you could possibly get. And when you're talking about what are we going to call him, we talked about Anawai. And thinking, Coquina was another name. Do we keep that? Just make him a sumo champion. But the champion sumo wrestler is the Yokozuna. That's what they're referred to. Sounds like a cool name. We're just going to call him fucking Yokozuna. And it was as simple as that. It couldn't have been an easier, this is what he's going to be. This is what he's going to look like. And this is his name. Let's go. than anything we'd done in a long time. The creative services pretty much just drew up what he would look like in the garb itself. And then of course we had to do his hair and put his hair up, tie his hair up to give him a little bit different look.
It's just fascinating to hear, how these characters sort of come to life before we ever see them. As part of the gimmick, as you said, he's going to wear his hair up and in a tight bun, and he's going to wear this traditional sumo thong with tights underneath those. And when he comes to the ring, he's going to throw salt in the corner. These little touches, is he involved in that process at all? Or is this all just sort of ready-made and handed down and, hey, go figure it out and get over, big boy?
No, we gave him the bucket with the salt and everything because that was a tradition in the sumo wrestling. You purify the ring and you throw salt, which purifies the ring before you go into it and after. So that was a part of the sumo tradition for years. The stereotypical, if the wrestler was from Hawaii or Japan and they were billed from Japan, then they always threw the salt, and it was a purification. But then they would always use salt later on in the match as a weapon. So this was tradition, and trying to keep as close to that tradition of sumo as you could within our realm.
Talk to me a little bit about the presentation with the tights. This isn't something he's used to wearing. I could see how some guys would be, hesitant to have a look like this. Any hesitation or pushback that you remember from him at all?
Not once we got to the tights. I mean, the hesitation was just going out there without the tights and having his ass hanging out there. God damn, I want to see that ass. So once he got the tights, he was completely comfortable because he had always worn tights. So that was no big deal. That just made him comfortable, and that was important.
He makes his debut August 13th in Regina, Canada. He's going to defeat Joey Maggs, who most people remember was an enhancement talent a lot of times in WCW. His pay-per-view debut happens at Survivor Series 92. he's going to pin Virgil after sitting on him. And Meltzer would say, Yokozuna is going to be a moneymaker. This is exactly what it should have been. 1 star. The match only goes 3 minutes and 34 seconds. The bonsai drop. Talk to me about that as a finishing maneuver. It definitely looks devastating. You can definitely see that this is very believable, and it's very believable because it probably was very dangerous. Tell me about the bonsai drop and what you remember about coming up with it and any hesitations or concerns you guys may have had.
Shit, light as a feather, man. Yoko could be heavier than his 400 plus pounds, and he could also be like a pillow. So depending upon which Yoko you got that day and how much he liked you. So for the most part, it was a pretty easy bump, and it was just so devastating that after that bonsai drop, what else would he do? Who's getting out of that? Who's going to kick out of that? And it was simple. It was something everyone could take. Again, this was one of those, everything fell into place so easily because it was so logical, and you had the right guy in the right gimmick doing all of the right things.
Well, you know that Yoko is headed for great things because soon after this Survivor Series match, he's working with Randy Savage on the house shows, and he's actually beating Randy. Any hesitation for Randy on Randy's end to put over a new big guy like this?
None. Randy wanted to work with him, and Randy was happy to go out and work with Yoko every night because Randy saw the money in it, and Randy thought, holy shit, this big bastard is going to be great. So Randy thought, let me go around, take that Chief J Strongbow role, if you will. Let me go around and put this son of a bitch over everywhere and really get him over so that when he's going into your town and all the live events, you're seeing him against former WWF champion Macho Man Randy Savage, and he's beating him. Yeah. It got Yoko over immediately.
He comes into the Royal Rumble 1993 on January 24th in Sacramento as number 27 in the Rumble match. He's going to eliminate Bob Backlund, Tatanka, Earthquake, Carlos Colon, Tito Santana, Owen Hart, and Randy Savage, which sounds like one hell of a Hall of Fame class. He winds up winning the Royal Rumble match, and as a result, earns a world title shot at WrestleMania 9. And this is the first time that they had that stipulation where if you win the Rumble, you get a title match at WrestleMania. Pretty creative finish. Savage and Yoko are the last two in the ring. Savage gets Yoko down and does the elbow drop off the top. But he goes for the pin, and Yoko bench presses him off from the ground over the top rope to win the match. And even though Yokozuna was only in the company for a few months at this time, you got to think, they're strapping the rocket to him. Holy cow. Gets a win on pay-per-view at Survivor Series very quickly after his debut. Now throws out half the roster and wins the Rumble, and he's in the main event for WrestleMania. This is unprecedented to be pushed this far, this hard, this fast, is it not?
Well, every time from Yokozuna's debut up until this point, you would hear that music. Music was very low-key, calming. Yokozuna would walk out, come through the curtain, and the crowd would all stand, and you would hear a murmur across the audience, like, oh my God, look at that. Oh my, oh. And then when Yoko would give his finish, there would be an audible, oh. So this bastard had captured the imagination of the audience because they'd never seen someone that size, that look. Sure, we've seen Andre. You've seen big guys. This was a big bastard that could move and knew how to use his weight. So to the average fan, they're talking amongst themselves going, who the fuck can beat this guy? How are you going to get him out of the Rumble? If he enters the Rumble, he can't go over the top rope. Who's going to eliminate him? So it was a perfect storm. This was during a time that we were all looking at different things to do, and we're looking at life without Hulk Hogan. So we thought at the time for a little while that, okay, what are we going to do? Do we change this formula and go with a monster heel and look for a baby face to chase? Just discussing a lot of different things. And we had the perfect storm in Yokozuna because he had captured the audience's imagination, and he was water cooler talk. So let's go with it, because you can't pick it, and you can't figure out how they can beat him. And if they don't beat him and he wins, who the fuck's ever going to beat him?
Well, it's just fascinating to me that, this guy comes in so fast and is pushed so quickly. How is he, this is a guy who's been wrestling for a while at this point. How's he responding to the push? Some guys don't always respond well to it and aren't really prepared for it. And we've talked about that here on the show. Others are ready for it, but perhaps everybody in the locker room isn't. How is this perceived by others? And is Rodney ready for this, you think?
Rodney took it as if it were another day at the office. As far as everyone else in the locker room, you couldn't deny him his ability. You couldn't deny his talent. And Rodney wasn't an asshole. Rodney's a great guy that everybody liked. So you were happy for the success he was having. And if what they were doing with him was successful, then it's successful for everybody else involved. So it was all good. And here was a guy, if he gets over and business picks up, it helps everybody along the way. So it was nice. There really was no animosity towards him. And if there were, then we probably just would have shut him up, but there weren't, because Rodney wasn't an asshole about it in any way, shape, or form.
It's fascinating to me that he would main event a WrestleMania before the Undertaker. The Undertaker comes in at Survivor Series 90 and he sees Yoko just sort of zoom right past him to the main event of WrestleMania. Do you remember how their relationship sort of got kicked off? Because I think a lot of fans have seen the pictures floating around. We know that Yokozuna and the Undertaker once upon a time were pretty good friends.
And they became fast friends. So again, I think that the jealousy and all of that shit comes from outsiders trying to stir up shit and think, shallow thinking, think of what they would think. And a lot of times guys like that, Taker was happy to have a new guy to work with. And that's, if you're a baby face like him and you're looking and seeing this big bastard come in, I'm going, oh, fuck, that's money. I can hardly wait to work with that son of a bitch. So that was more the feeling than anything.
What about Bret Hart? I ask because it's clear that, Bret Hart and he are going to be working together at WrestleMania. Bret Hart's one of the boys, but he's pretty opinionated at times. What did he think about a big guy like Yokozuna coming in and being in this spot so quickly?
Well, Bret was a whole lot less opinionated at that time. Yes, he was opinionated, but at the same time, I think Bret probably was a little concerned from the standpoint of what the hell am I going to do with him? For the same reason of he's a big guy and people may not believe that Bret could beat him. Now, Undertaker may have a chance. A bigger guy might have a chance, but initially the way that Yoko's being pushed, there might have been some concern on Bret's part. I don't know that he ever came out and voiced that, at least not to me or Vince or anybody else. I think he was looking at, again, somebody new to work with and trying to think how Yoko's going to tap out to the sharpshooter.
Right. Well, let's talk about that, because they do have a match January 31st at a house show in Toronto. And this is essentially a preview of our WrestleMania main event. Bret's going to win by count out. And then on February 6th, 1963 on Superstars, Duggan is going to succeed in knocking Yokozuna down, which is the first time that's happened. And then Yokozuna would hit Duggan with a bucket of salt that Mr. Fuji had brought to the ring, and then hit him with 4 bonsai drops, the 4th being with the American flag draped over him. And in the process, Duggan also, he's bleeding, which is pretty rare at this time in the WWF. And as a result of this angle, there's some controversy. And we've talked about this before when we cover shows from 1993, but it's picked up on the news in Los Angeles that the Association of Asian Pacific American Artists, the AAPAA, the Japanese American Citizens League, and the Media Action Network for Asian Americans have all taken issue with this and are now protesting. And you guys now have to go on the defensive and sort of defend this. And their issue is they made it into an East-West type of thing. It perpetuates the hate. The general American population is being educated wrong on who we are. When you hear that there's pushback about this, and obviously for you to have Duggan bleeding here and, draping him with the American flag before you do it, you were looking for quote unquote heat. Is this the wrong kind of heat, or is this the beginning of the PC culture? What did Vince think of this?
I think, at the time it was promoting a pro-American sentiment, which is something that has always taken place in American wrestling. You have the evil international star come in, and if they're from any place other than from where you're from, then they're bad and they're evil. And that was something that had been done in movies, television, everything that you could possibly imagine. Look at the Olympics back then and how, it was pro-America. Everything was about America against the world. So anybody coming into America to make a name for themselves, whether they were Japanese, German, French, whatever, then they were anti-American. So we were doing what we had done for many years. Now, I think that when you look back on it through the eyes of 2019, wouldn't do that today. And you wouldn't have that same type of rivalry in 2019. And this is probably, as you say, probably the beginning of that PC culture of having a voice, speaking up, and people taking notice to it. But it wasn't meant to offend anyone. It was meant to entertain, and it was meant to capitalize on what was really going on in the world and how people did feel at that time. And you're doing it from home base. So as an American, that was the majority, I think, how people felt.
Wait, hang on. You think that people felt like angry with Japan in 1993?
No. I'm saying angry with, any foreigners. That was the stance. Everything was it was America against the world. And by this time, I think that the Japanese heel of Mr. Moto's of past years was probably passé.
Well, yeah. So it's weird that we're talking about
the Germans, it had become passé, but there was still a pro-America feeling in the world.
In hindsight, I guess the question is, but right or wrong, wrestling is a form of entertainment. And because it is in the public eye, a lot of people contend that they have an obligation to take a step back and say, I know we could, but should we? Do you think that in 1993, WWE should have been perpetuating some of the anti-Japanese sentiment here?
I think that it was, again, something that had been done for years, and right or wrong, I don't think that anyone had ever brought up that people might have been offended. Japanese Americans, if you will, or American Japanese, people of Japanese descent living in America who were American citizens. So you didn't
listen.
You really didn't think about that until they brought it up. You didn't.
Well, that's what I was looking for. That's what I wanted to talk about, I guess, is it does feel like if you're in the wrestling bubble, then you're used to, okay, we need a bad guy. Well, just say he's a Nazi. And so we'll have a German here, but we'll put Nazi symbols on him and call him Baron von whatever. And he'll be a bad guy. And okay, well now we've got a Japanese guy. All right, well let's make him tiptoe around everywhere. and then sneak up behind people and we'll yell, "Oh, we Pearl Harbored him," and he can throw salt in their eyes. But, so whether that's good or bad or whatever, in poor taste, it has what had been done in wrestling for so long. I guess my question is, do you think that perhaps people who were in the office were so far in the wrestling bubble that when these activist groups take issue, they're like, whoa, what the fuck, man? He's just a Japanese guy. This is what Japanese guys do in wrestling.
No, I think you look at it as entertainment. Even to this day, there are still movies that are made that depict foreign leaders as evil. And there's still that feeling. This was entertainment. That's all. We didn't set out, hey, let's go out and offend people here. It was never the intent. The intent was to go out and tell a story that people can understand and people can get behind and easily understood. But if you go out with the intention to offend, you're never going to win because it's offensive. And obviously that wasn't the goal. And until someone brings it to your attention, a lot of times, unfortunately, you don't think about it. Now I think that people think about it probably too much, which is good that you ask the question up front and say, well, hang on, if you do this, then what are the ramifications of it? In 1993, 30 years ago, whatever it is, those questions weren't brought up because they hadn't been brought up before. We hadn't had someone come on and say that before.
No, I get it. And I think, to defend their position for a minute, it's probably based on, and you may argue this, but in 1993, a lot of the presentation in the WWF was to children or younger folks. And if we're sort of teaching those younger folks that, oh, Japanese are bad people, I could see how an activist group would take issue with that. That, maybe there were, some folks who lived in a different era who had different opinions, but maybe we shouldn't be passing that down here. So I understand both sides, I guess, because I too now am in the wrestling bubble. And you guys had a PR person, who would come out and address this. And he says that Yokozuna has been very well received by fans since he was brought in, and he's defending the company, saying the WWF has another Japanese wrestler, Tenryu, who's a good guy. And, he says that the future matches of Yokozuna will be monitored. And the TV station there in LA says the decisions whether or not to air them will be made on a case-by-case basis. And when the show airs on Saturday, it's interrupted by Lord Alfred Hayes that says because of the graphic nature of the match, it couldn't air. And instead, they air the Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, loser leaves town match in its place. So Lord Alfred has to give some sort of cover reason, and it was bloody, as to why it's not airing. And the follow-up to this is going to be that the Quincy Patriot Ledger is going to report that Robert Burke, a 54-year-old, filed a petition in U.S. District Court in Boston to force the WWF to make a televised apology for mistreating the flag. That's the American flag. I don't know why, but that to me is amazing that this one angle gets you heat, not one way, but two ways.
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy. And if you only knew the strong sentiment of trying to protect everything. And sometimes it seems like, you offend one, you're going to offend somebody else on the other side. I was just reading today, great article about, like, right now people are petitioning about the Joker movie that's coming out that people haven't even seen yet and want it banned because of the violence. But yet, how is that different than a John Wick movie was the comparison? I haven't seen either, but I find it funny how people can pick one side of an argument or pick one side of something. And this is so bad and evil, we should never see this. Well, what about this? It's the same thing, but it has somebody else in it. Oh, that's okay. It's just, and that's what this was. Yeah. I think that if something offends one side, it's going to offend the other probably just as much.
Let's talk about a few weeks before WrestleMania on TV. Brett and Yoko do a contract signing, which ends with Yokozuna jumping Hart, splashing him and leaving him laying. And Yoko's going to start working shows with the Undertaker as we head into WrestleMania. And on the March to WrestleMania special that airs on the USA Network on the 28th, Yokozuna would pin Randy Savage. So he's kept really, really strong as we head into WrestleMania. And I think everybody knows by now what happened at WrestleMania 9. It is available in the archives if you'd like to check it out. Yokozuna pins Bret Hart, 8 minutes and 55 seconds, 3-star match. But of course, that's not the only thing that happens. Hulk Hogan comes out. Fuji challenges him immediately for the title. Hogan acts as if he's more concerned with Bret than getting the title. And Bret tells him to go take the match and take the title. Fuji throws the salt. Hogan ducks, clothesline, leg drop, 1, 2, 3. 21 seconds later, Hulk Hogan is the first person to pin Yokozuna. It took him 21 seconds to pin Yokozuna and win the world title. And of course, Hulk has said that this was his idea, at the eventual payoff being him dropping the title back to Yokozuna. When did you first hear about this idea of, we talked about all the Hogan stuff ad nauseum, but we're going to have Yokozuna, this marquee talent that we have pushed to the moon and made this unstoppable monster. And when he leaves his feet, it's a big deal. And he's got heat every which way, but we're going to have Hulk beat him in 21 seconds.
Okay. I'm only going to speak to it from the Yokozuna point of view, since we have covered it ad nauseum. I hated it. I hated it for the reason you just said. I wanted Yokozuna to be unbeatable until the right guy came along in the right situation to come along to beat him and have it mean something. And that guy was probably going to be Undertaker and or someone else along the way, and or Bret at the right time, in the right situation. So from that point of view, I just hated killing the heel. You build a heel to do the nasty, beating your champion, and then he's beat 21 seconds later. It just killed it for me. And I did like the idea of beating Hogan, but I didn't. I just hated it.
Yeah. I mean, I get why you hate it. I mean, you've made this monster and now it's done, and it's done probably because Vince is in love with Hulk Hogan, but you can check that out on WrestleMania 9. Bret wrote a few weeks prior to WrestleMania that he managed to talk to Yoko and said, lay on the dressing room floor and let me see if I can put the sharpshooter on you, which I think is just fucking fascinating, because to your point that you sort of alluded to earlier, Bret's only concern was, can we get when I get my fucking finish on him, this bastard's big legs. And he says, I didn't picture beating him with it. None of the fans would have think it's possible for me to turn him over. The move had the potential to be a great spot for WrestleMania 9. Vince was having him destroy all of his opponents, and I was shaping up to be a huge underdog. And then of course we know that, Vince calls Bret on April 2nd and asks him to meet him in his suite. And he does. And as soon as they sit down, he says, this is what I want to do. I want you to drop the belt to Yoko tomorrow. Pretty amazing. Does it shock you that Bret, a month out, is like, hey, let me just see if I can get my finisher on you? Like there's no fans. They're not in the ring. They're just in the back.
Yeah, no. And that was one of the things, because Bret looks at the business the way I think that most people should look at it, is he looks at the ring as his canvas, and he wants to paint a picture and tell a story. Big part of Bret's story is that sharpshooter. So Bret, he wanted to know, thinking, is there a way I could ever get him in it? He's so damn big. Can I even get my arms around his legs? And his legs are as big as some people's body. So that's just Bret thinking ahead and looking at, this would be a pretty cool spot if I could ever get to it, but I've got to know that I can get to it first.
It's just amazing to me. Bret would write of the match, an exhausted Yoko stampeded like a runway elephant, shortchanging me on my comeback and editing out all of my best spots. I was furious that he would take it upon himself to go home on his own. I don't know. That's just amazing to me. He says, I was a little pissed off at him for going home on me and not letting me show Vince, Hogan, and everyone else that we could tear the house down without their bullshit finish. Even so, it was the best match that Yokozuna ever had. As far as you know, did Yoko call the match to end early?
No, we called the match to end early. We were running short on time.
After WrestleMania, by the way, lots to unpack for WrestleMania 9. I think it's one of our better episodes. If you like when Bruce and I fight, boy, that's got to be near the top of the list. Go check it out in the archives at somethingtowrestle.com. After WrestleMania, Yoko was going to work with Duggan and Undertaker on a lot of the house shows. But let's skip to the next major event. It's King of the Ring, June 13th, 1993, Dayton, Ohio. It's the first King of the Ring on pay-per-view. And let's process what we're talking about here, guys. This monster, this unbeatable monster, is finally going to take on Hulk Hogan. And Hulk Hogan has built the WWF on his back and on the back of beating monsters. And Yokozuna beats him. This is Hulk Hogan's last match of the company for a long time. And Hogan's going to drop the world title on pay-per-view. I think this is the first time that he's been pinned in the WWF since WrestleMania 6 at 1990. And this will be the last time we see Hogan on pay-per-view for the company until No Way Out 02. So this is unbelievable that it happens this way. And they're going to go 13 minutes and 11 seconds. Of course, there's the schmoz finish. There's the cameraman who throws the fire, and Yokozuna pins him with a leg drop. And after the match, gives him a bonsai, and Hogan has to be helped out. So not only is Hogan dropping the world title on pay-per-view and taking a pin for the first time in years, but it's his last match out, and he's going to let him hit his finish after the bell and then stretcher job. Unbelievable the way this comes together like this.
Yeah, but yet very believable. And again, going back to Hogan's idea, and that, Hogan was like putting him over in the end and wanted to make sure that he got put over strong, did the honors and carry him out, whole 9 yards, not to be heard from again until, as you say, 2002. So it was a big deal. I just, I think we could have got there without beating Yoko along the way.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree. I mean, it is weird that nobody can get this fucker off his feet, and Hogan beats him in 21 seconds. He does get the win back, and he gets it in a big way. And I got to tell you, I know, we sort of gloss over this fact a lot on the show, but man, it's a big deal to beat Hulk Hogan for the world title. It's a big deal to beat Hulk Hogan on pay-per-view. And it's a big deal to send him out of the promotion on a stretcher, because this is really his last televised thing like this. And there was lots of, guesswork and hopefulness and speculation as to what might be in the future for Hulk Hogan. Bret Hart did a photo shoot with Hulk Hogan. We've talked about that before. Bret's thinking we're going to wrestle at SummerSlam 93. Meltzer's going to speculate based on the way this finish happened. It's got to be Yoko Hulk Hogan in a rematch at SummerSlam 93. Of course, none of that happens. Do you think when Hogan agreed to take the finish and then take the stretcher job, he thought he could work some sort of deal out to come back at SummerSlam? Or do you think he was just, it's the right thing to do, I'll do it on the way out?
I think at that point that Hulk was done. I think at that point, Hulk had made up his mind. He was going to do Thunder in Paradise. He wanted to do the movie thing, and this was his way of going out.
It's fascinating to me that we've seen Hulk Hogan pass the torch before, and they tried it with the Ultimate Warrior. And most people would argue, well, the Ultimate Warrior had a better look and he was more muscular and he was over with the fans, but he wasn't a bad guy. It's supposed to be like the replacement for Hulk Hogan. But when Hogan does the honors the second time, it's for this giant Yokozuna, and he's a monster and he's a heel and he's not a good guy. It's total opposite of what we saw in 1990. And it does feel like at this point, we're trying to figure out, hey, what's next for the company? Not just what's next for Hulk Hogan, but what's next for the company? Because we just beat Bret Hart at WrestleMania. Yoko beat him, and now he's won King of the Ring. So we're still keeping him strong, and we're going to find out what's next on the 4th of July. Aboard the USS Intrepid, we see the Stars and Stripes Challenge. Various athletes from several sports are going to try to body slam Yokozuna, who at this point has never been body slammed. Process that. He wrestled Hulk Hogan, wasn't body slammed. From the WWF, you've got the Steiner brothers, you got Bob Backlund, you got Tatanka, you got Crush, you got Randy Savage. Everyone's trying. Nobody's making it happen. You got an NBA player, Scott Burrell. You got Bill Fralick of the Detroit Lions. You got a couple of Pittsburgh Penguins, all of them unsuccessful. And then all of a sudden, a helicopter flies in and lands, and Lex Luger, dressed in a red, white, and blue shirt, gets out and walks to the ring. And as a reminder, up until this point, Lex has been a heel. He's been playing the narcissist character. And after a brief stare down with Yokozuna, he hits him with the bionic forearm, which allegedly had a metal plate in it, and then body slams Yokozuna, which in the process gives Vince McMahon his new top baby face. With Hulk Hogan out of the WWF, it allows Lex Luger to slide in, be the new body guy that maybe Vince was looking for. We've talked a little bit about the Lex Express in one of our very, very early episodes of Something to Wrestle. You can check that out at somethingtowrestle.com. But on the heels of this event, Lex is riding around the country on a bus. And you guys are calling it the Lex Express. And you can hear all about those shenanigans and how challenging they were for Bruce. But let's talk about this spot on the ship. Whose idea was this? Let's go get on a fucking battleship and do this.
Well, good God, it's the United States of America's birthday, 4th of July. And the USS Intrepid is sitting there right in the harbor, New York City. Huge tourist attraction, storied battleship. What better place than for an American hero to come in and body slam this monster from far away? And the incredible part about all this shit, we told on the Lex deal, but that day it was 107 degrees on the deck of the USS Intrepid. We had a capacity crowd on that damn ship. People were fainting from heat exhaustion. This is how hot it is. And we're like going downstairs just to try and catch, a few breaths of air-conditioned air on the ship, and then coming back up. And it's like, holy fuck, man, it would just suck the life out of you. And Yoko and Fuji are in the ring this whole time. And the first thing that Yoko does when he gets in the ring, of course, is he takes off his flip-flops, his things. Well, this ring has been sitting on the deck all morning, and we're kicking this thing off at high noon. So the sun has been beating down on that canvas for 5-6 hours, whatever it is. And Yoko kicks off his flip-flops and goes to step on the mat and starts doing the hot foot dance and turns around to go put his flip-flops back on, and Fuji kicks him off the apron. And Yoko's like, I got to get my flip-flops. You don't need flip-flops. Let's go. And so Yoko's up there and just that's why Yoko's moving so damn much when he is in there. Finally, he just settled in and burned the bottom of his feet. But yeah, he was dying up there as hot as it was. And Fuji was just laughing his ass off the whole time. And Savage is out there. Savage is in the damn pleather, whatever stuff that he's wearing, sweating. I bet Randy lost 30 pounds that day. Just, he was dripping wet. Like his sweat came through the leather shit. The tights he was wearing, his sweat was coming through the tights. He's sweating so damn much. So finally, when Lex comes down and we're waiting for that damn helicopter, and Vince is like, cue the fucking helicopter. And Nelson Swegler, who's on the other side, is like, oh, does he, should we send the helicopter now? God damn it, where's the helicopter? I think we should get the helicopter started now. And the whole thing was the helicopter was supposed to be going.
Right.
So that all it had to do was make one fucking move and sweep in and be there. So we're like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like there's no one else here that can challenge Yokozuna. Oh my God, in the sky. What's that? Well, fucking helicopter was supposed to be there. And this like, God damn it, shout to the fucking helicopter. There's no helicopter. So finally, they sent the goddamn helicopter, and it comes down there. And Todd Pettengill, bless his heart, just so good at filling time and ad-libbing. He's like, there, wait, wait a minute. I'm getting word. What? I call your attention to the far end of the ship, and finally the helicopter showed up, and here comes our savior, Lex Luger. And when Yoko hit that fucking mat, he got up so damn quick. He was like, fuck this shit. And we were out of there. But that was a hell of a promotion, because 4th of July, New York City, we had a ton of great sports stars that were there that wanted to be a part of the damn thing. Everybody had a blast, except for the people that passed out. And I thought that was one of the neater promotions that I've ever been involved with. That one was a lot of fun. It was just unique, and people to this day still talk about it.
Yeah, they're still talking about it because it was awesome. How did it come together? It does feel like it's kind of a cool deal, to have an opportunity to be on a battleship like this. Did you guys just call like Battleship RS?
Yeah, you just go, exactly. Say U.S. landmarks are us. They tell you first thing, okay, well, let's see, where are you? What is your location? Damn, Stamford, Connecticut, pal. You go, oh, okay, well, we have the Intrepid down here. It was either that or Norwalk Beach, so we chose the Intrepid.
Oh yeah, it would not have been.
Yeah, I mean, fuck, man, it's New York City. We thought about doing it on Ellis Island. Ellis Island wasn't going to allow it. And so the next, kind of the next best thing is where you're thinking Ellis Island, you're thinking Central Park. Central Park, we didn't want to do Central Park. And then we had done a lot of stuff with the USS Intrepid Foundation. So we'd done different events there and thought, well, shit, do it on a battleship. That'd be cool as fuck. Lex come in on the helicopter. I know we did talk to the folks at Ellis Island, and they weren't keen on it from the standpoint of getting an audience there.
Sure.
Not a part of, the Ellis Island tour and Statue of Liberty and everything. So there were a lot of hindrances on that end. But Intrepid, I just thought it was cool as shit when it came together. I've still got that poster somewhere, but maybe when I unpack eventually, I'll pull that one out.
The idea of it being on Ellis Island is the only thing that's cooler. It's way better than that beach you were talking about. I mean, the ship is pretty fun. I mean, people are still talking about it. I've got a private group chat, easy for me to say, of wrestling fans.
A lot of chaps in that chat.
A lot of chaps in that chat, as you know. And when they found out I was doing Yokozuna,
I've never been invited.
You wouldn't want to be in there.
I know, you're right. I wouldn't. You're 100% right. You are right. I would not want to be in that chat. I've seen some of the chats from those chaps in that chat.
Yeah, you don't like any of those chaps in that chat. I mean, you like them to their face, but as soon as those chaps in the chat turn their back, you're just,
I start chapping about them.
You do. Yeah, that's what you do.
I can't stand them, especially Silva.
I feel like if you were to,
is Silva still in it?
Yeah, he's in it but not really. He's like, let's keep it moving here. Let's talk about what we're doing after the Intrepid. A week later, the July 12th Raw is headlined by Yokozuna and Crush. Cool storyline going here because Yoko's going berserk because of the slam, and now he's going to give Crush several bonsais after pinning him. Then he's going to destroy Tatanka and a few enhancement talent until Randy Savage and Tatanka pull Crush out of the ring. Yokozuna is going to then start working with Brett on several house shows. He's going to pin Brett in most of those, but he'll lose some others by DQ. And then there's a contract signing for Yokozuna and Lex Luger, and Mr. Fuji is going to bring out Jim Cornette as the new spokesperson for Yokozuna. We've talked about this on our Jim Cornette episode, but briefly tell everybody, why did we think that we needed another element to Yokozuna's act?
Yoko needed a damn mouthpiece, and Fuji wasn't going to be the one to go out and sell tickets for Yokozuna. Yoko wasn't going to do it. And part of the negotiations, I guess, if you will. Jim Cornette was doing Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and we had brought Jim and the Heavenly Bodies in to do some TV. In exchange, we would help Jim with Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and Vince was highly impressed with Corny's gift of gab. Thought, God damn, Bruce, you think we could get him full time? And I said, absolutely not. But if we do some stuff with Smoky Mountain and maybe use the bodies, I bet you we could at least get a television character out of it. And let's talk to him. So Vince and I grabbed Corny and pitched him. And Corny went exactly where I thought he'd go, which was Smoky Mountain, to which Vince was ready for and agreed to help him out however we could. And next thing you know, official spokesman for Yokozuna, James E. Cornette, motherfucker. I'm having him on a steady diet, double cheeseburgers, extra mayo, double onion, motherfucker.
Starting on July 29th, the WWF is going to do that famed European tour that you've heard Bruce and I shout at each other about. It's Hulk Hogan's final matches in the company before he officially leaves. He's challenging Yoko for the title every night during the tour. They're going to wrestle pretty steadily between July 29th and August 6th. 8 times, in fact. Hulk wins them all by DQ. On the rest of the tour, Yoko's going to wrestle and beat Randy Savage or Bret Hart. And then they're back stateside. Come August 13th, they're at Madison Square Garden, and they draw 13,000 fans to see Bret Hart and Yokozuna in a steel cage for the world title. Man, that's a pretty big time main event for MSG. And at a time when business is down, 13,000 tickets is very, very respectable.
Absolutely. And it was that big rematch from WrestleMania, first time in New York. And I want to say in the Garden, this may have been Yoko's first appearance in the Garden as champion. So it was, pretty respectable.
I'm pretty excited about the next thing we're going to talk about here. It's August 23rd. So 10 days after the MSG show, we're going to go down to the Mid-South Coliseum for a USWA show. And this is where we'll see our first ever Yokozuna Lex Luger match happen. It's non-title, of course. That allows Lex to pin Yoko after a body slam, clothesline, and elbow drop. But what's fascinating about this is the same show where Vince McMahon is playing heel for the very first time, interfering in Jerry Lawler versus Paul Neighbors. Of course, Vince is going to interfere by tripping Jerry Lawler. And I think a lot of fans have seen online where Vince did a heel promo leading up to this show and he's in Neighbors' corner. Man, this is a big moment for an independent like USWA. I know it's going to become like a developmental territory for you guys, but to not only have the world champion there and what's going to be your SummerSlam main event there, but to also have Vince McMahon as we've never seen him before. This is quite the coup that happens here in Memphis.
That's as you had never seen him before. I'd encountered the heel Vince McMahon for years before that. Yeah, it was. And that was one of the reasons that Vince even agreed to go. He wanted to see the match with Lex and Yoko. So it was a good reason for him to be there. And while he's there, fuck up Jerry Lawler's match. It's a win-win.
Yeah, it is a win-win. And it's a really, really cool moment. Jim Cornette and Yokozuna, believe it or not, are both on Regis and Kathy Lee the morning of SummerSlam, which is fascinating to me. Meltzer says that Cornette was told to be funny and not be a heel on the show, but everyone's cheering for Yokozuna. What do you remember about Jim Cornette and Yokozuna on Regis and Kathy Lee? I've never seen this. I got to go out of my way to see this. Jim Cornette in this environment should be hilarious.
He was hilarious because now Regis is great and Kathy is Kathy. But you know, it was, a lot of fun because Regis fancies himself a good talker and Jim Cornette's a great talker. So it was kind of the battle of the mouths on early morning television.
All right. Well, let's talk about SummerSlam. Such a big show. I think everybody knows August 30th, 1993, Palace of Auburn Hills, right there in Michigan. What's fascinating about the presentation here is that we've got national anthems sang for both respective countries. Aaron Neville is going to sing for America. Jimmy Suzuki is going to sing for Japan. Just crazy when you really think about what we're talking about here. Meltzer would say, Luger looked like he was 230 pounds, which is a 65-pound drop in the past year and 30 pounds down just in the past few weeks. Meltzer gave it 2 3/4 stars. I guess we should mention that, the finish to this is not exactly what people assume it's going to be. Yokozuna is going to miss the bonsai drop. Luger's going to hit a body slam and punch Mr. Fuji. He's going to remove his elbow pad and hit Yoko with a clothesline that sends him to the floor. And there's a count out finish. So Luger wins the match, but he doesn't win the title in 17 minutes and 58 seconds. Balloons are coming down, huge celebration. The Steiners and Tatanka hit the ring. They're playing a video with Luger, just highlighting his bus trip. And after the video is over, Yokozuna is still knocked out and Jim Cornette's still trying to revive him. And they're trying not to emphasize that Luger hadn't won the title and instead just pushing that Luger won. 2 3/4 in the Observer. It is a little weird though. It does feel like it's set up for this big crowning moment for Lex Luger, and it looks like it and it feels like it, but it's really not.
Yeah, Vince wasn't sold. He just wasn't 100% sold on Lex. There was, when you originally start on this journey, I think we all kind of started it with the end result being, okay, Lex beats him and that's your guy. Okay, let's go. But along the way, Lex stumbled along the way, and he wasn't drawing, and he wasn't really connecting with the audience the way that we thought he should connect with the audience. And Yoko was. People were believing in Yoko. So Yoko wasn't the coming off the heels of WrestleMania and Hulk beating him. Yoko wasn't this undefeated monster at this point. So we also had to rebuild Yoko. But I think probably the biggest thing was Vince wasn't sold on Lex 100%. He wanted to build Lex more and see if Lex could withstand the test of time. So his idea was we'll just keep going with Lex. We're going to keep pushing him. And if they're going to get behind him, they'll get behind him on the chase. So that decision was made well ahead of the show taking place. So, I mean, we knew what we were doing, but it just, I don't know. I just didn't feel it. You know what I mean? You know how sometimes it's like you get there and it just, there was nothing there. It was kissing your sister. He won. Yay. It was a fucking count out. And I think that's the way the audience felt. I think the audience felt deflated, and they were like, okay, they're holding him up on their shoulders. He's the hero, but he didn't win the belt.
It's just, let me freestyle for a minute here. It feels like, in the middle of this steroid controversy and Hulk Hogan's going to step away for a little bit. Well, even going back to 1990, we're trying to find the next Hulk Hogan. We try with the Ultimate Warrior. We realize very quickly there's no such thing as the next Hulk Hogan, but we sort of feel like we have our hand forced. We've got to go in a different direction. So we're going to try Bret Hart. Business is down. Understandably. I mean, it's a cyclical business is what everybody says whenever business is down. But for whatever reason, with Bret as champion, business isn't doing what it did with Hulk Hogan. So when Hulk Hogan is flirting with the idea of coming back, and at the same time, we've built this monster heel, it does feel like, okay, here's an opportunity. The Hulk experiment is maybe not exactly what we wanted. That relationship is tumultuous at best. So we decide, all right, you know what? Let's just pivot back to our monster that we built. And maybe since we can't be enamored with big overjuiced muscles, now we're just enamored with monster size. So Yokozuna is our guy. We're going to get comfortable in that role. But in the back of our mind, we really want that next Hulk Hogan. And it was a failed experiment with Bret Hart at that point, perhaps. So let's bring in who could be this blonde haired, blue eyed, muscular dude, Lex Luger. And then that just doesn't really hit. So we go back to what we know. Let's just stick with the fucking monster. Is that sort of if you could peek into the mind of Vince McMahon, which would probably be a scary place sometimes, do you think that's sort of the rationale of how we got to here, where it feels like we're playing hokey pokey with who our top guy and who our franchise is going to be?
Yeah, we didn't know. And that was the question. It was a feeling, with Vince being enamored with Lex from long before this, back in the Body Stars days and all that other good shit. So Lex was the guy Vince really, really thought he wanted until he got to deal with him all the time. Then he started doubting it. He liked Lex though. So just wasn't sure. Lex had made a hell of a career on potential. I've heard J.J. Dillon say that a million times, but a true statement. So Vince was realizing all this and going, we're gonna keep it where we are, and let's see what develops underneath. Could be Bret again. It could be Undertaker. It could be Lex. Maybe Lex will come out of this, and it could be him on the other side. So at this point, I think he was just still thinking, let's wait and see. Keep our options open.
It's just fascinating to me that, this is the biggest wrestling company in the world, and we're not exactly sure where we're headed, but Meltzer has a theory. There's a very logical business reason not to change the title here. The biggest money match the company thinks it has for WrestleMania is Yokozuna versus Lex Luger, but it can't draw a WrestleMania buy rate with Yokozuna as the challenger. The scenario that seems to make sense is for Luger to be denied a title shot because of the no return clause, and then being forced to win the Royal Rumble to get a shot at WrestleMania, which he would. Whether it was a good or bad decision will be determined by the fall or by the fall business. I think that's an interesting theory. Can you speak to, let's go back to August of 93. Do you think that's the idea at that point of, hey, it doesn't make sense. People don't want to see Yoko chase for the title. We need a babyface to chase for the title. And maybe that could be our WrestleMania moment.
Well, that's his theory, and he's completely guessing there. As I just said, I mean, from our point of view, it was we really had three guys we could go with: Lex, Bret, or Taker, and Vince was leery of Taker at that point because he was like, God damn, I don't want to saddle him with the championship. Then what do I do? But Taker was definitely in the conversation, but the conversation involved those three, and Taker was kind of that alternate because Vince wanted to protect that attraction, didn't want to saddle him with the championship, if you will, at the time. So it was still up in the air. And this was one of those times, where you're ahead and you're thinking about where you want to go. This was a time that we had options going into WrestleMania and weren't going to decide at that point. He wanted to let's see what we do at Survivor Series. We'll make a decision by the time we get to the Rumble. And that's what we did.
Fascinating. The house show loop after this, we're going to see, business is down just a little bit. In Chicago, we're going to draw just under 5,000. Madison Square Garden the next night does 11,500. Then we're off to Philadelphia and we do 6,000. To be clear, none of this, I mean, those aren't bad numbers to say the least, but when we just did 13,000 with Bret and Yokozuna, and now we're here with Yokozuna and Undertaker, it does feel like you can start to draw your own conclusions a little bit. On November 21st, Yokozuna and Mr. Fuji are on the Conan O'Brien show. Boy, that feels like it's out of the book of bad ideas. What do you remember about Yoko on Conan?
Oh God. It was bad. I remember that, but it was meant to be bad. It was meant to be humorous. It was fucking bad. I don't think Corny was available. I actually remember it like it was yesterday and how bad it was, but I don't remember the circumstance for not getting Cornette there to do the talking with Conan. And so it was, well, fuck it. You know, just going out and have Fuji do Fuji. It was ugly.
All right, let's talk about Survivor Series 93. It's Luger and the Steiners and Undertaker, and they're going to beat Ludwig Borga, Yokozuna, Jacques Rougeau, and Crush. 27 minutes, 59 seconds, 2.5 stars. Not a great match, Meltzer would even say. Luger pinned Jacques with a forearm in 2 minutes and 28 seconds, and during this fall, Vince McMahon made the comment that Borga may be the wrestler of the 90s. God help us for the next 7 years. Pretty funny. He would say not bad, but hardly a pay-per-view or a memorable pay-per-view main event. I don't think anybody could disagree, but we do see the seeds planted for Yokozuna Undertaker and how that feud could be next, which is going to happen, of course, at the 94 Royal Rumble, which we have covered in the archives. It's a bizarre casket match where Yokozuna keeps the title, beating the Undertaker to the point where all of the heels attack the Undertaker, get him in the casket. He's dead now, and he levitates to heaven or whatever.
He ain't dead.
Oh, I thought the Undertaker was dead.
No, he wasn't dead.
Okay.
He just sealed in the casket, for fuck's sake.
But then he
Chuck Norris was there.
How did he float up?
Wait, was Chuck? No, Chuck wasn't there this time.
No, this is when he floated to the ceiling.
Yeah, he was just sealed in a casket.
Yeah, and his eyes, are closed.
He came up, but he came. Yeah, well, he was resting,
and his spirit leaves his physical body on the TV, and then
no, I saw his body leave, motherfucker.
You know what it did? It was on behind the screen. It just popped up. February. Go listen to that silly shit if you want to hear Bruce defend this. It's the Royal Rumble 94 episode in the archive. SomethingToWrestle.com. Heading into the show, Meltzer was speculating that Taker might win the title and Yoko would turn babyface. Was that ever discussed as far as you know?
Oh, Meltzer said it. Goddamn, it's got to be true. Fuck no.
You ain't got to get hot about it.
God damn. He's, and people fucking think this fucker has credibility.
On February 28th.
He's been wrong. He's been wrong forever.
Yokozuna wrestled Savage in a great match. Crush would come in and interfere, and that gets us the DQ. And now we're all set for WrestleMania 10. Let's just talk over each other the rest of the time. March 20th, 1994, Madison Square Garden. This is one heck of an episode. Yokozuna is going to retain the belt over Lex Luger in 14 minutes and 40 seconds. It gets a half a star. And then Bret Hart would pin Yokozuna to win the world title in what Meltzer would call anticlimactic 2.25 stars. Really an underrated WrestleMania. There's been rumors for years and years. We should briefly address them here. That Lex Luger was supposed to win the title. But he told the reporter, the week of or the weekend of the event that he was going to win. Vince found out about it, changed it to a DQ finish. I know you're going to shit on that, so shit away.
Yeah, it's not true. I mean, we knew before we got there. So before any quote reporter, I don't even know where that came from. Here's the thing. If you're being interviewed, why wouldn't you say you're going to win? Fuck yeah, I'm going to win. So I don't know how much water that holds. I know guys didn't like Lex. So, that was probably some shit disturbing in that realm. But would Lex have done that? Maybe, probably, but the decision had already been made. So it wasn't like, oh my God, Lex did this. And if Lex had done that, I could see Vince having the chat with him. Goddamn, you got to get your shit straight. The boys are looking at you. But I don't see Vince, well, goddamn, now you're punished, pal. The decision had already been made. We were going to go with Bret.
This is a big moment here. It is Yokozuna's 280-day world title reign. Yoko had been the man for about a year up to this point. At this point, we should remind you, he's headlined 2 straight WrestleManias. And I think he's the first heel to do that so far. But I do want to talk about another idea. Hypothetically, when Hulk Hogan drops the belt to Yokozuna at King of the Ring, goes out on his shield, takes the finish afterwards, stretcher job out of here, is it discussed that maybe they could come back with this at WrestleMania? I know that, a lot changed in between, but this is the first WrestleMania without Hulk Hogan, and you're back where it all started, Madison Square Garden. It does feel like if Vince was looking for a big attraction, I mean, Hulk Hogan and WrestleMania, that's peas and carrots, baby. That's peanut butter and jelly. And especially in Madison Square Garden, and especially with the guy who beat him and left him laying. Was it ever discussed to the best of your idea?
Definitely discussed from the standpoint of when we did that, we've got the return. So you got the rubber match. Always, we always, like, in the back of our mind thought, well, we've always got that rubber match. Would it have made sense there? No question. It would have made sense. But by the time, what was it? Maybe Survivor Series-ish, we knew that Hulkster was out of the picture.
It's so fun to go back and look at what if, because if Hulk would have came in again, here's this.
Oh God, the Garden.
Another great crowning moment for Bret Hart, sort of ripped away again. I mean, that show goes off the air with his brother looking at him, from the entranceway, and Bret is resting with the world title above his arms, but he's sitting on the shoulders of the other baby faces in the promotion. And if Hulk Hogan's there, boy, ain't none of that shit happening.
Why, they couldn't lift him or what?
Well, I don't mean that they're lifting him. I mean, Bret Hart's moment once again at WrestleMania, 2 in a row. Holy cow. May 7th, Yokohama, Japan. The WWF's going to run a show. How about that? Undertaker and Tenryu are going to beat Bigelow and Yokozuna in 18 minutes and 17 seconds when Undertaker pins Yokozuna after a choke slam, which is hard to imagine.
I got to tell you a quick story.
I can't wait.
Give me the name of the town again.
Yokohama,
Japan. The very first time that I ever was a ring announcer was in Houston, Texas. I was 14 years old. Boyd Pierce, the ring announcer, did not show up because of bad flooding in the Houston area, which seems to be a constant motherfucking theme around here. I think we'd learn our lesson, but there was no one else to do it. And I said, I was wearing a blue Hobie, like, surf shirt, and 14 years old, and I'm ring announcing. The very first match was Toru Tanaka against, I believe it was Tommy Siegler. But first thing I did was I asked everyone if you would please stand for the playing of our national anthem. I fucked that up. And then I introduced, weighing in at 250 pounds from Yokohama, Japan, Toru Tanaka. And you hit it right the first time, and you're fucking Alabama, goddamn, that's fucked up. What was that other word you couldn't say? What's Rodney's last name? Wrong.
No, hang on now. Anawea.
Wrong.
What is it?
Yeah. Anawa'i.
And yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
Anawa'i.
Yokohama.
Well, here's the deal. Yokohama is a tire.
Really?
That's all I know. Yeah. You can get Yokohama tires, and they got to be run flats. Yeah. I know about that.
I don't even know what the fuck you just said.
Well, a run flat tire, like my BMW or whatever.
Why? Yeah, they can't run if they're flat.
They can. Yokohama can. Pirelli can too. I really run Pirelli P0s, but there was a rap group back in the day I'll introduce you to called the Big Timers, part of the Cash Money Millionaires. And they would remind you that Yokohama tires, and they got to be run flats. So yeah, I learned how to say that from hip hop. How about that?
Word to your mama.
Do you want to tell everybody the only verse you know of rap music?
Beat that pussy like Hulk Hogan.
Ladies and gentlemen, Little Yachty and broccoli is it's Bruce's favorite thing, because I rewound it 3 or 4 times and made him hear it until he could really understand what it was saying. And yeah, for about a month or 2.
When I vacay, take out all my mama. Gonna take my mama when I vacay. I may rent out the Bahamas, and then some beat that pussy like Hulk Hogan.
No, it was 50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey, beat that pussy like Hulk Hogan. Finish Shades of Grey. Beat that pose in that Hogan.
And I had to explain.
Finish Shades of Grey. I should have fucking sung that to fucking Online or the fucking guy that was there in Atlanta. The Drippin' Ric Flair.
The Drippin'
I should have sang that to him and impressed him with my
You know what's funny is
hip hopping skills.
Lil Yachty is boys with Offset. That's who you're thinking about from the Migos. And he would have appreciated that you actually knew a hip hop song.
They're amigos?
Yes, they are amigos. Not like Pancho though. They don't need the shit.
Hashtag Pancho Villa, amigo. Shit, man. Goddamn, yeah. I know Pancho Villa. We had lunch one time.
I don't know where we're supposed to go from here. We're in the middle of a Yokozuna show and we're talking about rap. Let's do our best.
Yokohama.
Let's talk about Yokohama. Was there an issue with Yokozuna using the Yokozuna name in Japan? I know that sounds silly, but I don't know. Just asking, it's a different
goddamn
culture.
Name. Is it a problem when you use Conrad when you check into a Hilton?
Come on, motherfucker. It's a very prestigious title for sumo wrestlers. I think only like 60 dudes at that point had been a Yokozuna, and now he's just strutting his ass calling himself that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you should change your name to Super Bowl champion Tom Brady and just try to check into a Hilton this coming week that way.
Why the fuck would I want to do that? Peyton Manning, maybe.
Oh, shut your whore mouth. He starts working with Earthquake on house shows. And on the May 16th Raw, there is a sumo match with Earthquake and Yokozuna. And Earthquake actually gets the win. But then on the heels of that, Yokozuna starts working with Mabel, 1-2-3 Kid, and Typhoon. Boy, there's no question for where's the beef in that. Earthquake and Yokozuna, Yokozuna and Mabel, Yokozuna and Typhoon, and then, well, Yokozuna and 1-2-3 Kid. Talk to me about
a vegetarian diet there. Just weed.
Sweet.
Greens. I meant greens.
Yeah,
just greens.
Right. Kale. And
Sean knows what I'm talking about.
Talk to me about a sumo match on Raw and Earthquake gets the win. What the fuck?
Well, it's a natural program because Tenta was a former sumo and big believable son of a bitch. And if he wanted to, he could have taken Yoko probably. But it was a natural. It was a lot of fun to do too.
Before we get too far, I want to circle back to Japan and then I want to get as far away from it as we can. Do you think that anybody over there in Japan had an issue with like Yokozuna's heritage? Not just the name, but the idea that, hey, he's not really Japanese. He's Samoan.
I don't think so. I really don't. Coming from and at least not in the sumo world, I don't think they would because there's Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Samoan, Fijian, a lot of sumos that come from all over the world, American. So I don't think that they did. As a matter of fact, to the contrary, I know that there were some that wanted Yoko to come over and do stuff with them. So I don't think there was any animosity. I mean, there may have been on some people's part.
Let's keep it going here. I gotta wonder on the heels of WrestleMania here, as we start to, march towards the June pay-per-view, we're going to be King of the Ring, Baltimore, Maryland. Yokozuna's not in the main event, and he was the tippy top guy almost from the moment he debuted in the company in late 92, dominates all of 93, wins the Royal Rumble in 93, wins the world title at WrestleMania. He has this big moment at SummerSlam where he loses, sure, but he's in the main event, keeps the belt. And as we fast forward to WrestleMania, once again, he's in the main event. Oh, and by the way, he killed the Undertaker, sent him to heaven. I mean, there's a lot of big accomplishments, but man, after WrestleMania, it's just like off a fucking cliff.
Ascended.
Sorry. Undertaker ascended. My apologies. But let's briefly touch on what he's doing here at King of the Ring. And this will give you a sense of what we're talking about. It's June 19th in Baltimore, as we said, and the Head Shrinkers retain the WWF tag title, beating Yokozuna and Crush in 9 minutes and 31 seconds when Lex Luger's distraction caused Crush to get pinned in a finish that Meltzer said Ray Charles could see coming. Star and a half. And I guess he liked working with his family here. You know, the Head Shrinkers and Yokozuna all came in at the same time. That's probably pretty cool. But it's not being the world champ. It's not the main event. It's not working on top. How's he? I mean, do you have any conversations with him? Is he depressed about this? Does he have an opinion? Is he thinking, hey, they're just, you know, going to try a new hold with somebody else and I'll be back in there for SummerSlam?
Well, believe it or not, Yoko was actually pretty easygoing about it and did enjoy working with his cousins, working with the family. So it was a time that he didn't have to carry the load, and it was a time that he didn't have to go out and work single matches every night. So kind of giving his body a little bit of a rest, working the tag matches, and he gets to work with family every night. So it's kind of a night off for him and give him a much deserved rest. And we're also getting ready, you know, to do something with him and Undertaker on down the line. So you kind of want to get him out of the picture a little bit while still keeping him involved. Be ready when it's time for Dead Man to come back and descend.
He's making less money here as a result of not being in the main events and world champion, right?
Probably, but at the same time, he had made pretty damn good money the year before. So, you know, it's all kind of, okay, you want to work less and you want to do less. Well, then you are going to make less money. So that may have affected him, but at the same time, that's the business. Not everybody can be on top all the time.
Did he travel with the Head Shrinkers or who were his traveling companions here in 94?
Whew. Travel with Fuji. Fuji drove him around. Fuji took the position very seriously. And when Vince talked to Fuji about managing Yoko, he explained to him what that position entailed. And that entailed taking care of Yoko. That made driving him around, making sure that he got checked into hotels okay, washing his back, you know, making sure that Yoko was okay. So Fuji did all of that. And Fuji did it with a lot of pride, because that was his meal ticket. Vince made it very clear, this is your meal ticket with Yokozuna right now. So I need you to be on the road in order to keep up and to keep Fuji on the payroll and continue on with Fuji. This was his role. And Fuji, man, he did it with a lot of pride. He made sure that, you know, his hair got done. He made sure that he was clean. I mean, that sounds crazy, but he's a big man that can't wash his back. Sometimes he can't wipe his butt.
Hang on.
What?
You been here telling me that Mr. Fuji used to wipe Yokozuna's ass?
Fuji would take care and make sure he needed whatever he needed. If he couldn't, Fuji would get him in the shower and take care of him. Yeah. He'd get him clean. Fuji, and I know that sounds crazy to people, but that's the way that Fuji was brought up. And Fuji took it with great deal of pride that, you know, he took care of Yoko. You know, when Yoko fell through the toilet one time, and Yoko was embarrassed and just
wait. The toilet exploded.
The toilet exploded, and Fuji took care of it. Man, Fuji literally pulling porcelain out of him and
out of him. Porcelain went in him. Yes,
all over his legs and shit. Man, it was a bad scene. But you know, I'm saying, I'm not making fun of it. It was a job, and it was something that Fuji, you know, young boys took care of him early on. You know, he came from Hawaii, and that's the way he was trained when he would go to Japan, when he would do those tours and saw the way they did things. And Fuji just took it very seriously and wanted to make sure that Yoko was taken care of.
Wow. Since we're talking about weird out of the ring stuff, Bret Hart wrote in his book that, can't believe this is real. Yokozuna had rats. Not like an infestation where you had to call
like
pest
in
control.
Oh, okay.
But like, you know.
Okay.
No, I'm just, what did the Yokozuna rat situation look like?
I can't say I ever experienced that and saw that. So I can't answer that one for you, much to your chagrin.
Kevin Nash has said that whenever he would ride in the same car with Yokozuna was taller than him because he had 2 feet of ass meat. Do you remember there being particular challenges with Yokozuna with the different cars? Not necessarily that it was too wide, but that his ass was so large that he became too tall to ride in the cars.
Usually had a town car. That would suffice.
There you go.
Had to have a large car.
On the August 15th Raw, they're going to tease another feud with Yokozuna and the Undertaker. Yoko's going to win a squash match against Phil Apollo, and then Taker's music hits and Yoko acts scared. And Meltzer would write about this taping. There was a screw up on Yoko's ring introduction. So after he had destroyed Phil Apollo, Apollo had to get up and act like nothing happened while they retaped the open of the match. Now, this isn't uncommon. It's happened before. But carry us through one of these situations where you have to sort of explain to the live crowd, hey folks, look at this light, Men in Black style. You've seen nothing. We're going to start over right now.
You don't explain shit. You just do it. I mean, you just do it. There's no explaining.
Okay.
Guess we're gonna do this again, and you just do it.
At Superstars,
People are like, oh fuck, they're doing this again.
At Superstars and Wrestling Challenge tapings on the 30th and 31st of August, Undertaker would beat Yoko in a casket match when Yoko tried to hit Undertaker with a chair, but then Undertaker gets the chair and knocks Yokozuna out and puts him in the casket. That starts a house show loop through September where Undertaker is beating Yoko in casket matches pretty consistently. And that gets us to Survivor Series, November 23rd, 1994 in San Antonio. We're going to get a 15-minute casket match. This is what you're talking about, where Chuck Norris is here and he's going to guard the aisle to make sure the heels don't get a chance to interfere. And he gets a big pop in doing so. Undertaker gets his return win here in 15-24, 2.5 stars. This is the return match from Royal Rumble. That was in January. This is in November. What did you think of this? And what do you remember about Chuck Norris's involvement?
God, I remember all these matches with Yoko and Taker just leading up to this where Yoko had his working trunks on, and God, he would fly all over the place for Undertaker, and they really enjoyed working with each other and had a lot of fun because they liked each other and they had great matches. And finally getting here to Survivor Series in San Antonio at the Joe and Harry Freeman Coliseum, by God. It was, it's just a nice ending, and we kind of did the reverse where everybody put Undertaker in the casket in Providence. Here in San Antonio, by God, you had Chuck Norris, because the only man that's man enough to protect the Undertaker from all of these outside villains is a karate man, Conrad. Now, he ain't no 3-time black belt Hall of Famer, but he's Chuck goddamn Norris. Now, he threw a fucking sidekick wearing his Century kicking jeans right into Jeff Jarrett's chest, by God, and about killed Jeff. We thought Jeff was dead, but Chuck was able to work it a little bit, so he didn't just quite kill him with that karate kick, because he's fucking karate man. It was actually a shitload of fun, and I enjoyed just being around Chuck Norris because we have a lot of mutual friends in the karate world, and he was funny as shit and a lot of fun to work with. So that part of it was pretty damn cool. And the match itself told a nice story, and it was good.
Meltzer would report at the end of 94, it's no secret WCW is interested in Yokozuna. Hogan needs his revenge at some point. There's lots of rumors in the dirt sheets at this time that for whatever reason, WCW is interested. Do you remember there being any concern that he might be looking to do something else?
No, not really. And probably more so from a comfort level. I think Yoko was comfortable where he was, and it just was the norm, if that makes any sense. But there were definitely a lot of scuttlebutt and people whispering shit back and forth. Probably started by the dirt sheets just to get shit stirred up, but nothing serious at least nothing where Yoko came and said, "Hey, I want to finish up," or anything like that.
Well, he's off TV for a while here, so that just sort of adds to the speculation. But then when he pops up at the television convention representing Titan, Meltzer would report to put to pasture all those rumors of him retiring or going to WCW. In fact, he was just ordered off TV to lose weight for his own health benefit before going back on the road. This is February of 95, long before I thought you guys had Yoko in some sort of weight loss program. What do you remember about taking him off the road and ordering him to lose weight here in late 94 and early 95?
Well, Yoko had gotten big, and part of the reason for the time off was Yoko had nagging injuries. He wanted to take some time off to rehab the injuries. But our concern was you need to lose weight. This was one of, I think, at least 2 or 3 times that we had expressed to Yoko that we wanted him to drop some pounds. So Yoko had this time off to, quote, do it on his own, at his own pace, and that he would lose weight. When he comes back, he's going to nurse these injuries. He's going to get into shape, and he'll come back a lighter, fitter Yokozuna. Said he came back bigger. He just came back bigger than when he left. And when he left, he was huge.
And I know you're going to laugh at this, but I got to ask, do you think perhaps, and I'm just freestyling here, that Yoko was maybe sort of depressed eating? Because look, I remember going over to Taker's house one night for a barbecue, and it was either after TV or pay-per-view or something. A lot of guys were there, and I watched Yoko eat, and this is not an exaggeration, 40 or 50 turkey ass, deep fry the turkey ass, and then he would dip it in mayonnaise and eat it. What are you saying? Turkey ass?
Turkey ass. It's the ass end of a turkey, which when you cook your turkey, you see the part where the legs stick out. Well, the other end is the ass and shit. And it's a big flap of little bit of meat, but a lot of fat in it and skin. And you'd fry that up, and it would get crispy on the outside, and you bite into it, and it's just juicy because it's a lot of fat, and it's probably 3 or 4 bites of meat. And he would just get the ass, and Take had gone out and got it because he loved turkey ass, man. It's like it's a part of like the island. They eat a lot of it. And he would just eat the turkey ass with mayonnaise. And I was just absolutely amazed. It was the first time I'd ever seen turkey ass.
So Undertaker is fond of turkey ass, or he knew Yokozuna loved turkey ass?
No, he got it for Yoko.
Okay.
No, I got it for Yoko because he knew Yoko was fond of it. And Yoko, man, sat there and had the deep fryer and would deep fry his turkey and eat it. Had a couple jars of mayonnaise and
a couple jars
enjoyed
of
it.
Mayonnaise.
Yeah, brother can eat.
All right. Well, let's talk
I'll go back to his training for the Slam, and we did a deal where Yokozuna's training, so we'd bring out these trays of sushi. Well, I ordered enough food to feed the entire crew and Yoko and Fuji, so it was huge. So I wanted to shoot it all to see, like, oh my God, look at all this food he's going to eat. Well, the fucker double crossed me and ate it all. He ate everybody's food. And he had an appetite. Yoko could eat.
Let's talk about that. You guys did a series of vignettes I'll never forget on Coliseum Home Video where you're showing him just wearing out some food. I mean, it's way, way over the top, but the way you're describing it, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, that was called lunch.
Well, tell us some other examples of Yoko's tremendous appetite.
For example, when we went and did the stuff, we did that at Fuji Steakhouse in Darien, Connecticut. I believe Kevin Granith was a producer on that. Maybe somebody else. I'll probably catch shit for naming the wrong person. But it was a Japanese steakhouse that we always used to go to. So I asked them, say, hey, can we come in here and shoot one day? So it was dining for the single man or some kind of bullshit like that. But Yoko just kept ordering food. And they brought out, I mean, that was, again, enough food for probably 12 people. He just kept eating it. And they didn't know any different. So when Fuji kept ordering more and more and more, they kept bringing more and more and more. And Fuji was half ribbing Yoko, telling me he had to eat it all. But Yoko was fine, just eating every bit of it.
Well, he ate all that shit for real. That wasn't some, fuckery.
Oh, God, no. He ate it all.
Oh,
and that goes back, but it goes back to when I was doing the training vignettes of him putting on weight with all the sushi and all the food and shit. When he ate all of our food. I was like, motherfucker. Yoko just, you don't get that big eating string beans, man. He ate some food. He had a healthy appetite, man. Loved him some yakiniku and Korean barbecue and shit. He could tear up a Korean barbecue. Like you'd go into an all-you-could-eat Korean barbecue, and he'd eat all they had. Had a healthy appetite.
Talk to me about,
or unhealthy,
how you guys sort of reconcile these vignettes where you're filming him just fucking gorge himself, but then not too terribly long after, hey, you got to lose weight.
Well, first of all, when we meant to do it as a spoof. We didn't mean for him to eat all that. We meant to depict that he was eating all that, but not for him to do it. He didn't eat all the shit on camera. We didn't say, hey, here, eat all this shit. He just ate it. We meant, we had like a little bit there for him to eat, a serving, but to see all the other shit, and then we'd go back and shoot it all empty. But he ate it all.
Right.
It wasn't us saying, here, eat all this shit. No. Just, what was Yoko?
Tell me about travel. And I know that this is weird, but we just talked about cars. I want to talk about planes. How did Yoko fly? You guys weren't private jetting him everywhere. He's flying commercial, but how's that possible?
Either first class or two coach.
So he could fit in first class.
He could fit in first class. Yeah.
Okay.
It was tight, and either that or he would take, if it was a commuter, which was really, really hard for him to get on, which he couldn't take too often. We'd have to drive him, but he would take either 2 or 3 seats in one row, but he could sit in first.
Let's talk about WrestleMania 11. Goes down April 2nd, 1995. Yokozuna is going to make a surprise return here, having been off TV for quite a while. He's Owen Hart's mystery partner. They're going to be challenging the Smoking Guns for the tag team titles. And believe it or not, Owen Hart and Yokozuna win 9 minutes, 42 seconds. And Yokozuna is a tag team champion. Owen's going to get on the house mic and introduce his mystery partner. And in doing so, he said his partner did what he always wanted to do, and that's beat Bret Hart for the world title. And it was kind of cool to see Owen hug Yokozuna when he came out. We didn't often see heels hug each other like this. So a cool bit of personality for Owen, and a nice little way to sort of get himself over here in the process, but an interesting way to bring back a main eventer. This is the guy who headlined your last 2 WrestleManias, and now here at WrestleMania 11, he's not even announced on the card. He's just a surprise. It is a cool moment though. He wins the tag titles. What say you?
I thought it was a great moment, and it was a way to bring Yokozuna back without bringing him back into the single fold, because we were still concerned about his weight and his health. So here is another opportunity to have him work in a tag team match. Owen can do the majority of the work, and Yoko can get his legs back under him. And I thought they were a hell of a team, because it's just completely opposite. So in that regard, it was great shit, because you got to see Owen Hart go in there and do all the work and have all that personality. And then Yoko comes in and he's the monster, and throw Cornette in the mix. And it's a hell of a package.
I'm not arguing that's a cool package, but it is weird. The main event of this show, we see Diesel retain the world title, beating Shawn Michaels. and lots to talk about there. Is Diesel just the next monster? Like, you know, Vince has tried it with Brett. He flirted with the idea of doing it with Lex Luger. He relied on his monster, Yokozuna, but maybe when he sees what he's got in Diesel, he becomes the new apple of Vince's eye, and we're going to send Yoko home to lose some weight. We've got a new steroid-free monster in Kevin Nash.
Yeah, we were trying a lot of different things because you had big shoes to fill in Hulk's absence. So we were looking for whatever's going to stick. And there was a lot going against the wall. Trying new things. People get upset when you try new shit, and then they go, "Oh, well, why aren't you trying new shit?" When you stick with something, it's a double-edged sword.
Let's talk about something I've wanted to talk about for a while here. It's BSK and the Click. For whatever reason, we fans have heard for a long time that there's sort of these two backstage groups that are more prominent. There's lots of little groups that travel together and hang out, but there's two sort of factions. Well, on one side of the Click, we've all heard about them for years and years, but on the other side is BSK. And there's been a lot of debate over the years about what this group was, who was in it, what it actually stood for. Fans know that the Undertaker has a BSK tattoo, and I think, maybe I have this right. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It's Yokozuna, it's Undertaker, it's Godfather, it's Rikishi, who was Fatu back then, Savio Vega, Henry Godwin, Midian, Crush, Paul Bearer, and Mr. Fuji. Is that the BSK?
I guess. Those guys all hung out together and were all friends, yeah.
And did you ever hear what BSK stood for? I mean, there's been guesses that it's Bone Street Crew, and a lot of those same folks say it's because they were playing dominoes.
I honestly, 100% have no clue. Well, always people that have always asked over the years, the answer's been, if I tell you, I have to kill you. I was out with some folks one time that saw that tattoo and said it was Big Samoan Killers. So I have no idea. I really and truly don't. And I'm friends with Undertaker. I'm friends with all those guys. Never asked. If they wanted to tell me, they could tell me, but yeah, never asked.
As far as you know, did Yokozuna have any problems with the Click?
I think if Yokozuna had a problem with it, with them, they'd know it, and vice versa. I mean, I just, Yoko had a quiet strength, and nobody's gonna fuck with Yoko, because Yoko would fuck you up. And he could if he wanted to, man. But I don't know that they ever had any issues. If they did, Yoko would probably take them down pretty quick. I never heard of any.
Let's go to In Your House 1, May 14th, 1995, Syracuse, New York. We're going to get a rematch from WrestleMania. The Smoking Guns are going to challenge for the tag titles. They're unsuccessful. Owen Hart and Yokozuna get the win. 2-star match. Not much to really cover there. There is a King of the Ring qualifying match on June 12th, though. Yokozuna is going to beat Lex Luger here, and the finish saw Mr. Fuji steal an American flag, and as Luger goes to chase him, Jim Cornette gets involved, takes his obligatory bump, and this allows Yokozuna to come from behind and throw Luger into the post, where he's counted out. These guys have wrestled at SummerSlam and at WrestleMania, and now here they are in a King of the Ring qualifying match. And at the time, they're billing Yoko at 641 pounds. That can't be right, can it?
He was tipping the scales at over 600. And we used to have him go to a feed. You'd have to find either like a truck scale or a feed market where they weighed livestock and things like that to weigh him. It's the only way you could weigh him. So he was getting up there, and we were really just getting concerned because he wasn't moving like the old Yoko. And here, this is one of those that, it's funny because you brought up the Click and just different things. When you speak of Yoko, I think Yoko's one of those guys. You can probably attest to this through people you've known in the business, that was universally liked, that never really had an enemy, and was truly one of the good guys of the business, that was just universally, you liked the guy. It was hard not to like him. So it's, you want to do everything you can to help him and try and bring him along, whether he's kicking and screaming or what have you. But, so it was a tough time during some of this shit, because you wanted to scream him. You wanted to shake him. Say, dude, get healthy. You got a family. Let's do something about this.
King of the Ring, Savio Vega, is going to get a win over Yokozuna by count out, 8 minutes and 24 seconds. Meltzer would say it's very hard to work with Yokozuna at this point because of his size and physical condition. After Vega missed a spin kick, Yoko went to a lengthy nerve hold. As Yoko goes to attack Vega from behind, Vega moves, Yokozuna runs into the ring post, and Vega gets into the ring to beat the count, 3/4 of a star. So it's not just apparent to you guys at this point, it's apparent to Meltzer and everybody else that he's really struggling with his weight at this point. And Mabel, another monster, goes on to win King of the Ring and starts to be known as King Mabel. It feels like yet another monster that Vince is going to try, whereas the monster from a year prior was all about Yokozuna. Now it's Mabel's turn, another super heavyweight. We're going to continue to see Yoko and Owen work as a tag team, and we'll get to In Your House 2 now, July 23rd, 1995. Owen and Yokozuna here are going to retain the tag titles, beating Lex Luger and Davey Boy Smith. That's probably something of an upset because Luger and Davey Boy seem like they're the bigger stars of the two, but Yoko and Owen pick up the win and they retain 2.5 stars. It's weird though that, Yoko's on one side and Lex is on the other. I mean, not too terribly long before this, these guys were in the main event for the world title at SummerSlam, and most people think they will be at WrestleMania, but here they're just somewhere in the middle for the tag titles. The next night on Raw, Owen and Yokozuna would lose to Vega and Ramon when Ramon pinned Hart, and they're announced as the new champions, but the decision is rescinded. The match is restarted because Owen wasn't the legal man. And after they go off the air, they end the match in the building with Yoko and Owen simply walking out to be counted out. And the next week on Raw, they announced they're going to restart the match, and we're going to see Yoko leg drop and pin Vega. And, Yoko and Owen didn't even wrestle at the SummerSlam 95 pay-per-view, which I guess is kind of interesting. And we know that Luger's going to wind up leaving to jump to WCW and join Nitro. Bulldog's going to turn heel. And, that feels like there's a bit of a change in the air. Talk to me about Yoko and Owen not even being on SummerSlam 95.
I just think it was no place for them. And you didn't have, which is even why we went to later on with the damn Diesel Shawn stuff. There wasn't, we didn't really have a strong tag team division. There wasn't anybody, when you look at it, okay, how the fuck you get the titles off of Hart and Yoko? Well, that's easy. Beat Owen. It was not that difficult, but I think that it was just a lot of confusion, and there just wasn't really a premium spot for them.
Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing on the heels of this. On September 17th in Toronto, Smoking Guns are going to get a win over Yokozuna and, of all people, King Kong Bundy. Man, what kind of fucking tag team is that?
A big one.
Yeah, no kidding. We should mention
it's a fucking big one.
Somewhere around this era, sometime in September, they started airing ESPN commercials for Sports Center, and these commercials have Mr. Fuji, Shawn Michaels, Diesel, Undertaker, Paul Bearer, Yokozuna, and King Kong Bundy. They're doing promos here with the idea that they're trying to bribe Sports Center for more pro wrestling coverage, and ESPN is sort of dismissing it. Like they'd never cover something like pro wrestling. It feels a little dismissive, but I mean, at this point in 95, you guys are probably just looking for whatever sort of mainstream crossover you can get. We know years later, you guys are going to have a much different relationship with ESPN. What do you remember about these series of vignettes?
Well, it was great exposure. So it was something, and I believe, as crazy as this sounds, I believe it was USA Network that actually kind of pushed us that way to ESPN, and ESPN later on being affiliated with ABC. But ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut, just down the street from the office, knew a lot of different people, but this was great exposure, and nobody looked at it as being dismissive. Nobody looked at it as, oh, they're picking on pro wrestling. It was our guys all over ESPN, 24/7 for however long this damn campaign lasted. And people still talk about this shit to this day. So it was tremendous exposure. It was a huge coup.
In Your House 3 is next, September 24th, 1995. We got Diesel and Shawn Michaels, and they're going to beat Owen and Yokozuna. We just recently talked about this. They're going to reverse it soon after, but we should mention that Dave mentions Yoko's weight here in his write-up. He says Yoko's gained so much weight, he's got to be pushing 700 pounds legit. That's fucking unbelievable. On October 9th, we would see Owen and Yokozuna and the Bulldog team up in a 6-man on Raw to take on Diesel, Shawn Michaels, and the Undertaker. Yoko is going to deliver a leg drop, and then Bulldog is going to pin Diesel after a power slam. In Your House from October of 95 is in Winnipeg. It gets -2 stars. I can't believe this is a real match. We'll talk about it someday. Yoko and King Mabel. Mabel was said to have weighed 580 pounds legitimately for this match. And Yoko's got to be near 700, Meltzer says. Horrible match with a horrible finish and a strong candidate for worst match of the year. -2 stars. This feels like the guy wrestling himself. Usually when you got a big monster like this, the best match is going to be when there's a smaller guy. What's the rationale here? Mabel and Yoko.
Two monsters collide, and what are they going to do with each other? And unfortunately, they didn't do a whole lot with each other.
I was going to say the answer is not much.
Yeah, sounds good on paper. The reality of it is that fucking bell. It rings sometimes and screws everything up.
You know, I want to ask here in a way that's not dismissive, but was part of the reason that you pair Owen with Yoko as long as you did because you knew Owen can make up for whatever deficiencies Yoko has now? Like Owen is a wrestler and a half. So
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. You had Owen in there to be able to take the bumps, make the match exciting, get in the ring and sell. You have Yoko to come in there, get a little bit of heat and get out. And when it's time to go over, Yoko comes in, does the big move on the finish, and that's what you expect. But Owen was a workhorse. It was really a handicap match.
The next night on Raw after this Mabel match, Ramon is going to beat Owen by DQ in a title match, and Yokozuna is going to interfere. And that brings 1, 2, 3 Kid out to make the save, but Yoko destroys him. And then Ahmed Johnson comes in to make the save and body slams Yokozuna. You know way more about this than me.
It was more like a hip toss on Yoko, but yeah.
Do you think Yoko's the heaviest wrestler to be body slammed at that point in the WWF?
Whew. God, could have been the heaviest ever. I don't know how big Billy and Benny Maguire were. They were pretty big too, but I don't think they ever took any bumps.
Okay. What about Happy Humphrey? I learned about him from Jim Ross.
I don't think Humphrey is from here in Houston. I don't think he ever took any bumps.
Well, after this, we see Yoko get a few more title matches against Diesel on house shows, but of course Diesel wins those. Why did we never see Diesel and Yoko on a pay-per-view or Raw or anything like that? It happened, but only on house shows.
Well, because again, you didn't have the Yokozuna that we had from years prior, and the limitations with his weight and being able to move the way that he could in a singles match. you weren't going to get that anymore. He didn't have it.
Let's talk about Survivor Series 95. Landover, Maryland. It's a wild card match. We've talked about this before. Not the best idea. Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, Davey Boy, and Sid. That's right. Good guys and bad guys taking on Yokozuna, Owen Hart, Dean Douglas, and Razor Ramon. 27 minutes and 24 seconds, 3.5 stars. Probably a good idea on paper. Not the best execution of a match. Just sort of there. After this, Yoko's going to go back to teaming with Owen to take on the Smoking Guns on the house shows. He'll occasionally have a match with the Undertaker, and the Royal Rumble is going to go down in 1996 in Fresno. Of course, Yoko's in that Rumble match, but this is the first time he's been in it since he won it in 93. That's interesting to me because he wasn't in it in 94 or 95. He's going to come in at number 9. He'll eliminate Bob Backlund again, King Mabel, SWAT team member number 2. And then he's going to be eliminated at the same time with Vader by Shawn Michaels, and Vader then fight each other to the floor. And that plants seeds for Yokozuna and Vader, which I guess would be Yokozuna's babyface turn. The next night we do see that face turn. He's teaming with Davey Boy, and they lose by count out to Diesel and Shawn Michaels, and Cornette is furious at him for losing and fires him. And then afterwards, Davey Boy and Owen attack Yoko, but Yoko beats them both up. So this is interesting because he's always been a heel, and now he's a babyface for the first time. And now that he's face, out of nowhere, having never spoken, he starts speaking English. Bruce, what the fuck? Who booked this shit?
Who the fuck said he didn't know English?
Well, the entire time he didn't speak English, and now he is.
He chose not to speak.
Okay. But now that
It's like Kane all of a sudden went from not speaking to being the fucking mayor of Knox County.
Dreams come true, pal.
Yoko wished upon a star, and he got his vocal cords.
Seriously, that's what.
Well, you understand now after he cut a promo why he didn't speak all those years.
All right. In Your House, Rage in the Cage, February 96. Yoko gets a win over Davey Boyd by DQ when Jim Cornette hits Yoko with his racket. And it's announced on TV that this is going to be Yoko versus Vader. But that's quickly changed to a 6-man match where we've got Yoko, Jake Roberts, and Ahmed Johnson taking on Owen, Vader, and British Bulldog. And if Yoko's team wins, he'll get 5 minutes with Jim Cornette. I would ask why the change is made, but it feels like it's made just because we didn't have anything for everybody. So let's find a way to get everybody on the card.
Exactly. Well, who's not booked? Well, goddamn, why don't we put them with there? Now, okay, that all works. Great. Next.
On March 11th, we see Yokozuna and Undertaker team up for the very first time. After years of feuding, they're going to team up on March 11th, 1996. They beat Owen and Bulldog by DQ. Of course, the WrestleMania 6-man we mentioned happens. It goes 12 minutes and 51 seconds. The bad guys win. Vader, Owen, and Davey Boy. 2.5 stars is the rating. And at the next set of tapings, Vader is going to beat Yokozuna by coming down on his knee. And we got lots of questions about this. When they do this is the night after WrestleMania. Vader, we're trying to push as a monster, comes down on Yoko's knee, and they carry Yoko out on a forklift. Talk to me about this. Lots of fans have jumped and speculated that, well, since they were upset with his weight, Vince did this to embarrass Yokozuna and encourage him to lose weight.
Well, to all of those people that asked that question, I would ask them this question back. How the fuck else would you get him out? Have you ever seen how they get people of his size out and into ambulances? They bring cranes in for them. They bring huge equipment in to lift them up and put them in hospitals and transport them, or they'll have these specially made vehicles for them. How else would you have gotten him out of there? We put him on a forklift to show how big he was and to show his mass. Yes, we definitely did. And when we asked, because we went to you ask professionals, what would you do in this situation? And they said, well, if you had access to a crane or if you had access to a forklift or something like that, we got a forklift. This is, well, then you try and put him on something. He goes, a lot of times you just take a board and put a board down, and you would put him on it, and you would secure the sides. You'd get him on there, and you would carefully lift him off in the forklift or a crane. That's how you do it. Not to embarrass somebody. It was to show us, I mean, that's what you would do. And it was a spectacle.
Yoko returns to the company on May 12th in Kuwait. He's wrestling in the Kuwaiti Cup tournament. He loses to Owen. Of course, we know Ahmed Johnson would win that very
Kuwaiti championship.
Well, he wins the Kuwaiti Cup. Such a big moment. Upon his return, he starts working the house show loop with Vader. Of course, he's losing most of the matches. And Meltzer would say, Yokozuna returned, having lost, on his own account, 33 pounds. At his size, that's really hard to notice. He suffered some sort of calf bruise immediately upon returning, but he's able to work with it. And after the pay-per-view, he's supposed to go back to the Duke Weight Loss Clinic for another 4 weeks. So talk to me about how you guys have this sort of intervention and say, hey, you got to lose weight. You're not doing it on your own. We've asked you to do it. We're going to have to send you to Duke to get this shit under control.
Well, as usual, Dave's wrong. Yoko still hadn't gone to Duke yet. And he had gone out there. He had visited with those people and decided, look, everything they're going to do, I can do on my own. So this is either the second or third time, whatever it is, lost count. But now with Yoko coming back and he just, for his own health, Vince was like, Rodney, I can't put you out there. Yes, you can go. Yes, you can do this. You can do some things, but for your own good, you need to go and get yourself in shape and you've got to drop some weight. So again, we'd sent him out to meet with the people at Duke, and then that failed. And 33 pounds, Yoko could lose that in water weight in a day, in a couple hours, frankly, taking a shit. He was huge. He was just fucking huge. He was just way too big. So, it was another effort to say, Rodney, you can't do it on your own. You're not doing it on your own. You have to check in, you have to commit, and you're going to be away from your family for a long time, 3 to 6 months, whatever it takes. And then after that, you have got to go here and you've got to learn a new behavior, because otherwise you're going to die. And, he kept saying all the right things, but unfortunately he just never followed through.
Just sucks, man. In Your House, Beware a Dog. We've talked about this in the archive, somethingtowrestle.com. There's actually 2 shows because of the power outage, May 26th and May 28th. Yokozuna wrestles Vader on both of these shows. He wins the first time in 3 minutes with a bonsai drop, but he loses the rematch to a Vader bomb. And Meltzer would report, Yokozuna is booked through the end of this month, but then will be giving a lot of time off at the end of the month to get his weight problems under control. They did an interview to start the storyline of him being gone after losing to Owen Hart on Raw, where he was despondent and said he wasn't himself anymore. And he's out for most of July here. And I'm curious, when he's sent home, or not home, to Duke, whatever, when he's given time off to lose weight, how's he paid during that time?
I really don't know. I think that Vince took care of him and made sure he had something coming in as if he was booked on live events, but I don't know exactly how he was, but I'm pretty sure he was.
Meltzer would say a play was made to bring the entire Samoan clan in, with Alpha as the leader, with Yokozuna, Fatu. McMahon got wind of it, and before Scott Hall and Kevin Nash made themselves into bigger stars and turned WCW around with their jump, McMahon quelled this one and offered Yokozuna and Fatu major pushes as singles baby faces. They were given the roles, but neither got over in a role, and the big pushes never materialized. That's fascinating to me. Do you remember hearing that somehow there was a big coup to try to land a bunch of the Samoans on the WCW side of things?
I mean, other than Yoko at the time, I don't know who else they would have ever wanted. But even then, Yoko was a shell of himself. I could see them going after after Yoko for Hulk to get that win, but one big monster match.
And then what? Yeah.
Yeah. Then what? And that was, but I could definitely see them pitching that big time. I know that, Vince has a soft spot for those guys. He had a big soft spot for Yoko, had a soft spot for Rikishi. And that was during the time that, he definitely did want to do something with them. All the stuff with Yoko was that caveat, though, that Rodney, you got to do something, man. You got to do something. And Yoko would always promise that he was, and bring him back and see him. You book him, you get him in there, and then it's like, God damn it. He's not doing anything. Well, that was sad. That was a tough pill to swallow.
Let's talk a little bit about what's next here. And this has always been fascinating to me because this is one of my first pay-per-views back as a WWF fan. SummerSlam 96. Now, Yokozuna is not on the actual card, but he's on the free-for-all, which aired before the pay-per-view, was to entice you to place your last minute order. And I'll never forget, they had a Bikini Beach blast-off or something. So they've got like Marlena and Sable and Todd Pettengill and Sonny and Owen Hart, not Owen Hart, but Jerry Lawler, and there's a Baby Ruth floating around this pool in the sand. And so they're trying to get you to order the show, but they want to give you some matches. And the match they give us is Yokozuna and Steve Austin. They go 1 minute and 52 seconds. And when Yoko goes up for the bonsai, the ropes break. He falls into the ring. Steve Austin hooks him for the pin, and the reverse camera angle shows, if you're looking for it, you can see Yoko trying to pull the turnbuckle apart so the ropes would collapse. So it was gimmicked. It got a dud rating, but who cares what Meltzer thought about this? This was entertaining to me. This was fun. And we got tons of questions from fans who believed that this actually happened, that, this was not the planned finish, and that Yokozuna's weight collapsed the ring legitimately. It's an interesting storyline, and an interesting storyline to do when you've got a performer you're trying to convince to lose weight. Who came up with it? What'd you think about it? And why wasn't it on real pay-per-view? I'm a little disappointed we can't go watch it right now unless it's on some random YouTube that'll get deleted as soon as we plug it.
Because you had to have something good for the free-for-all. We wanted people to tune into that, is the answer to the first one. But the idea came up because it actually happened. It really happened in a live event. And those are real ropes. And the way that the ropes are done is they bring the rope around, and then the wide spot where they tape everything up and they connect the ropes, and then you tighten it up with the turnbuckle. Well, at one point, Yoko had hit the damn thing so hard that when he hit it and he grabbed the rope and came back and pulled it off, the rope had broke. So it's like, well, shit, that's a hell of a spot. As unintentional as it was, when it happened for real, we incorporated it into the show and incorporated it into the match as a kind of unique way to get his eyes over and just do something different that hadn't been done.
The next night on Raw, Yokozuna out of nowhere is once again managed by Jim Cornette, I guess turning heel again. He's going to challenge Shawn Michaels for the world title. Of course, Michaels wins. This doesn't last long, and there's no explanation given for it, but what's the plan after he's been a babyface and now he's very quickly, all of a sudden, with no explanation, a heel managed by Jim Cornette? Is it just I guess Yoko is not really important at that point. It's about Jim Cornette versus Shawn Michaels. If Vader couldn't do it last night, tonight, by God, Yokozuna will.
It's a TV match.
Yeah.
And it was for a rating. It's quick. What the fuck's Shawn going to do with this monster?
We should mention on the South African tour that Bret Hart worked against Steve Austin. It was the last thing on his contract he had agreed to do before signing a new contract in 96. Yoko beat Hunter Hearst Helmsley twice and lost to Austin twice, but we don't actually see Yoko again on TV until the Survivor Series pay-per-view. And that is November 17th, 1996, once again at Madison Square Garden. Interesting lineup here. On one side, we've got Farouk, fake Razor Ramon, fake Diesel, and Vader going to a double disqualification with Flash Funk, the former Too Cold Scorpio, a surprise with Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Yokozuna, and Savio Vega. Snuka is 53 here and went in the Hall of Fame the prior night. The match, not the best in the world, 1 star. Meltzer's going to speculate here. Yokozuna, who looked to weigh around 720 pounds, could barely walk without blowing up. Yeah. Last match for Yokozuna in the WWF, and we wouldn't see him on TV after this. What do you remember about Yoko at Survivor Series, and why was this the end?
Well, it should have been the end before that. It's just another example of, in the day, Vince kind of having that blind faith and wanting to continually help, by God, they'll come around. No, they'll do it. They'll be all right. And then when that, it's in front of you, you're feeling it. It just takes that last step sometimes. So, this was it. It was that, God damn it, man. He can't get in the ring again. This is not on our watch. And it should have been done before that.
How does the conversation go?
We want to save your life. We want you to have a life. We want to see you get healthy. So get healthy, drop this weight, and we will help you. I mean, we'll do whatever we have to do to get you where you need to be. Whether it's, we talked about the band thing, but that was even still pretty damn new at that point. That was almost, I want to say it was experimental, but it was expensive, and nobody was really sold on it yet. Lap band. He talked about getting liposuction. It's like, what the fuck? That's not going to help you. You have to get into some kind of shape. And then at some point, even let's say that he goes out, does it on his own with all that skin, he's going to have some major surgeries anyway. But in order to come out of those better, you got to lose the weight and get into some kind of shape on your own first.
Right.
For any of that shit to work. So it was a heart-to-heart conversation saying, Rodney, we want to help you. We want to get you in shape, and we want to fix you. But we've been down this road. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get it done.
It's a shame that, that's what it took. Meltzer would report in February of 97, Yoko is said to have lost 310 pounds, which I'd assume would have to come from some sort of surgery. A few weeks later, he would say Yokozuna hasn't had liposuction yet, but he's already lost more than 200 pounds through an amazing loss of fluid retention, which amounted to an immediate 100-pound drop. They're hopeful after lipo that he can return at a manageable weight in the fall. In May, he would report Yokozuna has been contacted about coming back, but with all the injuries and he's on the blood thinning medication, if he were to suffer an accidental cut, the blood wouldn't clot and it could be really disastrous. No word on whether or not he'll get clearance to return. This is happening in 1997. You guys are paying him hoping he loses weight, and it's just not looking good the entire year, is it?
Unfortunately, yeah, no. And you're seeing him deteriorate more than anything. And being on the road probably wasn't helping, although to him, he would tell you, no, I need to be on the road, not sitting at home and not having anything to do. Our counter to that was, you're right. You don't need to be sitting at home. You need to be in a hospital where you are exercising every day. Your meal portions are done by a nutritionist, and you are going to school learning how to change your habits. So we agree with you. You shouldn't be at home, but you need to be in a hospital getting some help.
Here's what I found interesting. August 10th of 97, WWO, which is the World Wrestling Organization, has an event, and Yokozuna's on it, and he's in a 6-man. On one side, it's Conan, Mil Mascaras and Masquerita Sagrada taking on Yokozuna, Nikozuna, and the Evil Clown, which is Matt Bourne, the original Doink. And that's his first match since Survivor Series 96. Of course, Yoko's side is not victorious because we all know with Mil Mascaras.
No, yeah.
Meltzer reports a week later that Yokozuna is still under contract, but they want him to get down to 400 pounds, and it just isn't happening. He would also say he had a recent heart scare, but his heart recovered because he had to change his medication. And around the September, October 97 era is when we just recently touched on this. Yokozuna moved to Stamford, and you said you never heard that he moved to Stamford. So perhaps
he didn't move to Stamford.
Okay. Meltzer would say in October, Yokozuna is down to 500 pounds and is scheduled to start back on the road in November. The preliminary plan is for him to be a heel, and he may work a program with Vader. Now, we know that didn't happen. Was it discussed, or are you going to rant about this being bullshit?
It is bullshit because he had to get his weight down. He had to be able to get into some kind of shape. He wasn't there.
Somehow, some way, Yoko films a Coca-Cola commercial. I can't imagine that. All right. That happened. At the beginning of November, Yokozuna, it's written in the Observer, Yokozuna won't be returning after all. He was scheduled to start back this past weekend.
Oh, shucks. He was wrong.
But underwent tests to get a license in New York and failed the physical due to obesity and an irregular heartbeat. He said to still weigh in excess of 600 pounds. And because of the commission's other commission suspensions in the U.S., his license is pulled in New York, which means he's unable to wrestle in 20 to 22 states that are still left regulating pro wrestling. And coming on the heels of the Pillman situation, it's doubtful, even if that wasn't the case, that the WWF would want to risk someone being in the ring with any kind of heart problem. Of course, we're talking about Pillman because he passed away the month before in October of 97. But Yoko's going to pop up in May of 98 in Southern California. He's going to do an indie shot teaming with Jess Hansen to take on Honky Tonk Man and Cincinnati Red. And eventually he is formally released. When do you think that would have happened? Sometime in 98?
Yeah, along that time, because I think Vince was more hopeful than anything that Yoko would, and the Yoko's family would get him to commit and go into the hospital and get help. So that, Vince was just being hopeful on that. And I think we all were. I think we all wanted Yoko to just do what you need to do and get better, man. Drop some fucking weight. So it just took a while, but then it just came time that the reality is he's not going to do it. And if you continue to coddle him and say, okay, you still got a job, but we're not going to use you till you just had to cut ties. And maybe that would
make a difference.
That would be the thing that says, oh shit, now I've got to do something.
I can't believe this is real, but Meltzer reported in October of 98, Yokozuna was asked to do a run-in the Scott Hall Kevin Nash match at Halloween Havoc in Las Vegas, where he would attack Kevin Nash. Apparently he was offered $10,000 just to do the run-in, but turned it down saying he was too busy. Scott Hall called him up saying, since you're living in Vegas now and you have you've been training at a wrestling school out here, why wouldn't you just get your ass down here to the building and pick up this easy money? But he didn't do it and he wouldn't come. And of course that would have been, his last major appearance like that at Halloween Havoc 98. Well, you weren't there. You're not in his head. If you had to freestyle a guest, do you think he just didn't want people to see him at that time?
Yeah, I don't know. Cause I gotta tell you, in talking to him so many times, he was in denial. And
how so? Give me an example.
He was in denial that he thought he didn't need help. He thought, I'll eat salad. That was an honest to God answer. I'm like, Rodney, you're not going to just eat salad and lose. And that's not healthy. You have to change. So I don't know what he was hearing on the other side. I don't know if he maybe he just couldn't move and felt that they said run in. He's thinking, I can't run.
Right.
I'll go to Paul Bearer, WrestleMania 20. Paul couldn't walk up the steps. Paul was so big. So, Rodney may have been at that point that he just knew that he couldn't move. And rather than go down there and embarrass himself, he just didn't do anything.
Well, he's going to work several indie dates in New Jersey and Maryland. Meltzer would say he's said to still be gigantic. He's told people he was never offered the spot to do the run in, but several in WCW insist it was the case. And Scott Hall has said he was the one trying to call him up and offer him the easy 10 grand. Meltzer would continue. What probably makes the most sense is Yokozuna still has designs on getting back into the WWF, and working for WCW wouldn't put him in good stead with the WWF. And they've said if he could get down to the 400-pound range, he'd be figured in, but he's nowhere close to that today. He showed up in December of 98 as in Palmdale, California on an indie show, and he weighed over 600 pounds. He was supposed to do a run in and the bonsai drop, but his back was in such bad shape he couldn't do the bonsai, so he just did a few clotheslines. Did you have any sort of contact or keep in touch with him at all in 1999 that you remember?
Not that I really remember. I remember, always you'd see Alpha, ask Alpha how he's doing, or Junior. You always asked about him. But I didn't have any personal contact, no.
His last appearance on pay-per-view, unfortunately, is the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view, which went down in Mississippi, October 10th, 1999. On one side, it's Jim Neidhart and King Bundy. On the other, it's Jake Roberts and Yokozuna. They go 16 minutes and 34 seconds. Yeah, not good. That's a disaster of a pay-per-view and a showing, and probably not the way anybody wants to remember Yokozuna either.
Yeah. I actually saw that, and I'll say it now to whoever promoted that. You should be ashamed of yourself on every count.
Meltzer,
it was horrible.
Yeah. The Jake Roberts shenanigans alone are bad, but then to see Yoko in not good shape is just not good. Meltzer would write, Yokozuna has been telling people he starts after WrestleMania in a feud with Steve Austin. Let's put this in perspective. He's saying that this is going to happen in the year 2000. Meltzer says he's banned in all states where commissions regulate wrestling, which is at this point between 19 and 24 states, including New York. And they have revoked his license for failing a physical due to heart irregularities and obesity. And the WWF's hands are tied. So without a huge weight loss, this isn't happening. On October 23rd, 2000, we would lose him. Rodney would pass away from a pulmonary edema, easy for me to say, in his room in the Moat House Hotel in Liverpool while he was on an independent wrestling tour of Europe. He was 580 pounds at the time of his death. And unfortunately, while you and I were doing our European tour last year, we actually heard about him passing away over there and how difficult that was.
Yeah, it just terrible to hear. And especially, yeah, look, there's no good time, no good place, but be that far away from your family as well. It just sucks.
What's the reaction, from you and Vince and the office as coworkers when you hear that, well, we were afraid of this, but it finally happened. We lost Rodney.
Disappointment, sadness. You always think that you could have done more. You always think that, God, if I just gotten through to him that one time, or if only. And that's frustrating because I think a lot of times we want to play God, and we want to think that we can fix everything, and it's just not so. So when you realize that you're mortal and those that you love are mortal as well, it's a sobering and it just sucks.
It does suck. What was Rodney like backstage? You know, you said he had this quiet strength. We saw him as a mostly silent monster heel for most of his WWF career, but we knew he had a bunch of friends, and you said he was universally liked. What was his real personality like?
It's just a fun-loving guy, and he was quiet, but he was also a smartass and just a really good, likable human being. So it was a lot of fun to be around him. I did love to go eat with him just because of the amount of food that he ate, but he always got me to try something different. So, if, you know, got me to try turkey ass, got me to eat, the raw steak with the raw egg in it, the Korean dish, which I love to this day. It's just, he enjoyed life. He really did. And was a blast to be around. He really was. He would brighten up any room that he was in.
You know any good Yokozuna ribs?
Fuji just used to put shit in his hair when he would braid his hair and put his hair up.
Like real shit?
No, just like different shit.
Well, you got to appreciate in wrestling. There's a lot of shoot shit.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure there's no shoot shit.
A lot of shoot shit. No, he didn't put shoot shit. He liked Yoko, but he would fuck with Yoko.
So he can't wipe his own ass. So he'd ask this guy, a notorious ribber, and then the ribber's going to come in and fuck with him.
But the ribber took care of him and loved him. So he did take care of him like it was his own son.
What do you,
but you still got to get ribbed every once in a while.
I'm not asking this to be funny, and I know sometimes I ask this to be a dick, but what do you think was Yokozuna's best match?
Oof. God, he had a lot of great ones. Between, let's do it this way, because I can't pick out one match. I'll pick out his two best opponents were Undertaker and Brett.
Yeah, I agree. Those are his two best opponents. Do you have a favorite memory of Yokozuna, the character? Not necessarily, you know, the real guy. We've talked about him, but on screen.
When exactly. And it's pictured in my head. We talked about it a little bit tonight when after Undertaker had left, when we were doing the shit where we would hit the gong and Yoko's reactions and his facials were priceless, but we would do, like, for a long time, we just do the one gong. And so we do the one gong and he looks and all this shit and he's spooked and everything. So this one night we do the one gong and we're going to do a second gong. And on the second gong, Yoko took a bump. And it was just one of the funniest, unintentionally comical things I remember him doing. It was just absolutely classic. But he would get that shit over. And it was just that he sold that first gong looking around, big wide eyes and selling like he's terrified. He gets his fucking wits about him again. Like, okay, I'm good. He's not here. And he starts to go through the ropes, that second gong, and Yoko fucking reacts big, like, oh my God, he's here, and took a huge bump. And it was just, it was beautiful. It was just pure art. And only he could have pulled that off.
What do you think his legacy in professional wrestling is going to be?
One of the best damn big men ever in the business. And by that, I mean a big super heavyweight like that. Nobody could move the way that he could move at that size. Eventually the weight got the better of him, but boy, for a long time that you couldn't touch that sumbitch.
Let's jump to some questions. We asked you guys on Twitter if you got a question about Yokozuna, and this show has been in the works for so long that you guys had waited up and stored up a bunch of really good questions for us. Bruce, I want to do these rapid fire. Are you ready?
Okay.
Doug wants to know, I know Big Show at some point had his own bus. Did Yoko have his own bus?
No, Yoko, that was before buses.
Let me ask you this. I knew the answer was no bus. Do you think his career could have been extended had he had a bus?
No.
I'm asking that because I know sometimes if you're in a car and you're just hitting drive-thrus, you wind up eating fucking Wendy's at midnight. But if he had a bus, could he have had food prepared and maintained the weight a little easier, you think?
He could have done that on the road too.
Okay.
I don't know. I just think that his demons, as far as that went, probably too much.
Nelson wants to know, Yokozuna, Andre the Giant, both guys in their prime, who would win?
Holy shit. Well, you'd have to put Andre over eventually, but that would have been, I think that Andre would have loved Yoko.
Well, they met, right? Didn't they do a
Yes.
6-man somewhere once?
Well, yeah, but what I mean is I think that he would have loved
The character.
working, prime to prime. I think they would have loved each other.
Ken wants to know, had Yokozuna not passed away and been able to lose a good amount of weight, do you think you would have had a chance to team him up with Rikishi? And what do you think you would have called the team?
Yokozuna's. The fuck?
Real question. When we see Rikishi, under that Rikishi gimmick, he's wearing a similar piece of gear to Yokozuna, except it's without the underneath tights. So it feels like that could have been what McMahon wanted all along. And at this point, Yoko's sitting at home, their family. Sometimes, it's hard to manage business and personal and family and juggle all that. Was there any animosity with Rikishi and Yoko that Yoko's at home and now Rikishi's on TV wearing similar garb?
I don't think so, but that was part of the condition for Rikishi to do the gimmick, was you got to show that ass. This was and that was, I used Yoko as the example when I talked to Rikishi in Memphis TV. I said, Vince wants you in the sumo gimmick. You're going to show that ass. And that was something Yoko had a problem with. But he feels for you to do it, it's got to be done all the way.
I love that you just said, show that ass. Can you say show that ass as Vince McMahon? And let's see if we can turn that into a rap song one day.
I want to see those cheeks. I want to see that ass. I'm choking on my own spit.
Well, you're so excited about the ass. You're salivating.
Yes. I'm salivating.
Hey, let me ask oh gosh. Jason wants to know, was Yokozuna a big hit with the ladies? As a feature player on WWF TV at the time, it would make sense that he would be popular because of his fame. Can Bruce confirm that?
I'm sure the ladies just loved him. There's a lot of Yoko to love.
Spencer wants to know, would you rank Yoko as part of the Samoan dynasty as far as an in-ring talent?
Top 5.
I was waiting on that. Eric wants to know, if Yoko had returned during the Attitude Era, would there have been a character change?
Absolutely not. I think that Yoko in that character, that was Yoko.
Wayne wants to know, did the established stars at the time, Brett, Undertaker, Savage, etc., respect Yokozuna and accept him as champion when he first won the title?
Absolutely. I mean, what's not to respect? He was a great worker and second generation. Yeah, he had a legacy in the business.
Greg wants to know, does Bruce feel the tag team of Yoko and Owen was underrated?
I don't think people give it enough credit over the years. I think so. It's easily forgettable, but it was a tremendous tag team, and I thought we did some good shit with them.
James wants to know, does Yokozuna get credit for killing Hulkamania in 1993? I know Hulk came back in 2002, but his victory at 93 has to be the end of Hulkamania. You know what? I agree, James.
I do too. I hope so.
Well, yeah, we're fucking making it happen here on Something Wrestle. Yokozuna killed Hulkamania. Let's get that.
Okay.
Trend.
There we go.
Spires wants to know, any backstage fights or bar fights about Yokozuna?
Okay. You probably put him up to this. Yes. Yokozuna, put me to sleep in a bar one night with the front face lock.
Wait, we got to hear the whole story.
I've been fucking with him all night. There's no, sir. I was fucking with him all night and he'd had enough Jack and Coke and hey, brother, boom.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
Did you,
I got up, whipped his ass.
Oh, of course. Did he drop you? I'm not asking this to be funny. Did he drop you on your face? Did you hurt your face or did he just let you down easy?
Oh, no. He fucking laid me down. He took good care of me and stayed with me until I came to.
And then it was like, hey, just cool it out on fucking with me shit.
Yeah. Laughed his ass off.
Okay.
Oh, I put you out. Yeah. He thought it was funny as shit.
James wants to know, having Fuji as a manager, were there any crazy rib stories involving both of them? I think what James means is, did Fuji recruit Yoko to get in on any of the ribs on other people?
I'm sure he did. I don't know of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure that from time to time, Fuji like to use others.
Rich wants to know, do you like your Yoko clean shaven or do you like your Yoko hairy?
Clean shaven, baby. Smooth as a baby's butt.
Devin Brown wants to know, how did the kayfabe bonsai drop and the leg drop? So he has, in my opinion, the most devastating, I think the most fun looking leg drop is probably Sean Waltman's because he hits it with such a snap. But if you really think about devastating leg drops, I can't, like that Hulk Hogan one, and he was my favorite wrestler as a kid, man, that ain't shit compared to a Yokozuna leg drop. How did he master that? Was anybody nervous about it? Did he ever accidentally fuck somebody up with the leg drop?
He was light as a feather. He was that good.
But you did talk about the bonsai drop where sometimes if he wasn't in a good mood or if he didn't like you, and there's been some clips on social media where it looks like he absolutely destroyed some motherfuckers with the bonsai drop.
Yeah, there's a lot of cush there.
Okay. Simon wants to know, is it true Yoko was really good on the basketball court? I've heard he could murder the 3-pointers.
I don't know. Can't say I ever played basketball with him.
Andrew wants to know, was Bruce on the international trip when Yoko slammed Stone Cold so hard that Steve shit himself?
I guess not. I do remember the story of Steve shitting himself though.
Nick wants to know, was there ever anyone who refused to work with Yoko?
No. People wanted to work with Yoko.
Stuart wants to know, this is a great question, how much time did he actually spend working out compared to the other wrestlers?
About that much.
I'm sorry, say that again.
About that much.
Like this long?
There you go.
Is there anybody Yokozuna hated working with?
Not anybody that I know of. I don't think he was crazy about working with Vader. That's the only one that really comes to mind.
Great question from Michael here. What were the plans for Yokozuna had his weight not become a factor? Would he have been considered for another title run if his health had allowed him to return? So I guess we should circle back to WrestleMania 10. Going into WrestleMania 10, was Vince already up his ass about the weight?
Yes and no, but at WrestleMania 10, Vince was ready for a change anyway. But I do think that had, we gotten around, let's say WrestleMania 12, Yoko and Shawn, fuck me, all day long. I think that would have been tremendous.
Lance wants to know, who would Yoko work well with now on the current roster in a dream match? So prime Yoko versus somebody on Raw or SmackDown or NXT now. Roman
would be incredible. Jesus Christ, Daniel Bryan.
Oh, fuck.
And I know you sit there and say, what? How they would have torn the house down.
No, Daniel Bryan's low key the best wrestler in the world. Ezra wants to know, were the geisha girls that you used for Yokozuna members on the roster, or did you get them each week?
We got them at Geishas R Us.
I was hoping you were going to say that. Ryan says, recently Conrad asked JR on Grilling JR what was the most protected finish in wrestling. Can it be argued that the bonsai drop is the most protected finisher in the history of WWE? I don't recall anyone ever kicking out of it.
I don't know. I mean, probably it's one of them.
Last one. Matthew wants to know, did Yoko ever participate in food eating contests with any of the other boys?
Not necessarily a contest. I don't think anybody would want to. I think that as far as people that I've seen devour food, and I'm told that Roman Reigns can devour some Korean barbecue unlike any human on the face of the earth. But Andre and Yoko would probably be the two biggest eaters I've ever seen personally.
Well, we personally appreciate you being here to join us on this revisit of the one and only Yokozuna. We're going to be back here with you next week. We've already got the next several shows planned out. We're going to run them through. But first, we'll tell you what's on tap next is No Mercy 2004. It went down October 3rd, 2004. So Next Thursday will be the 15-year anniversary. On top, it's JBL and the Undertaker in a last ride match for the WWE title. We've also got a mixed tag match. That was kind of rare at the time. Charlie Haas, Miss Jackie, and Rico taking on Don Marie and the Dudley Boys. We'll also see the final in the best of 5 series with John Cena and Booker T for the U.S. title. We'll have a singles match with Big Show and Kurt Angle. We'll have the tag team titles on the line with Suzuki and Dupree defending against Mysterio and Rob Van Dam. That's a fun team. We've also got Billy Kidman and Paul London in singles action. Spike Dudley taking on Nunzio, and Eddie Guerrero wrestling Luther Reigns. It's an interesting time in 2004, and we'll revisit it next week right here on Something to Wrestle. If you want to know what else is on tap, we've got Taz coming your way. No Mercy 1999. We're going to do something different. We're going to do a watch along for the pay-per-view we talked about earlier today from WCW side of things. Halloween Havoc 98 with the horrid Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan rematch from WrestleMania 6. We'll do Fabulous Moolah. We've got the Wrestling Classic from 85 that predates Bruce being with the company, but we're going to do it watch along style. So it should be fun. And then we'll round out November with some fun Survivor Series revisits. We'll do 99, then we'll do 89, then we'll do 94. November is going to be lots of fun as we sort of visit all those big milestones through the years. We appreciate your support. Hope you'll follow us on social media at Prichard Show is where you can find us on Instagram or Twitter. You can also check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/something to wrestle. If you want to know how to get a t-shirt or an autograph or see where we're going to be, if we're ever doing another live show ever again, go to bruceprichard.com. And don't forget, when you pick up a shirt there, Bruce does not give you a call, but you do get a great shirt. And we appreciate your support here on the show and look forward to visiting with you this Friday and every Friday right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
You want to know if I know Pashovia? Yeah, we had lunch one time. Chaka Khan.
Is that the new thing? You're going to do the Pancho Villa thing every week?
Hashtag Pancho Villa.
I feel like that's a shirt over at bruceprichard.com.